This tale kicks off with multiple system notifications alerting folks about a bunch of bizarre happenings around the globe. Fishermen found a colossal abalone on the coast, so gigantic that not even 10 people could encircle it, presumed to be a mutant from nuclear waste. There was also buzz about an ancient tree in a tourist spot going wild, spreading its roots for miles and cracks in the ground appearing thanks to some strange earth pulse. The alerts kept coming with giant vines descending from the sky, turning fairy tales into reality, and news that subway tracks had been wrecked in several locations, leading to a few unfortunate incidents. But no one really cared, knowing it was just another load of clickbait headlines. Kind of like that ridiculous scare about zombie bites a few years back. A bunch of students were hanging out in front of school, finding local rumors way more entertaining than the news. Suddenly, their attention was hijacked by a striking figure walking up. It was the school's heartthrob, Chuch Ching Lee. Instantly, the crowd speculated whether she was finally dumping her boyfriend. They thought the relationship was just her charity project. Chuch Ching Lee was all set for Chingchong University, while her boyfriend was still scrambling to get into any decent school. Clearly, their futures were on entirely different playing fields. Chuch Ching Lee approached Fong Yi and called out to him. Fong Yi turned around, curiosity piqued. With a chill demeanor, she tossed out that she'd given it some serious thought and their relationship wasn't realistic. High school romances always hit a point when one wakes up and realizes they just aren't meant to be. According to her, a life together needed both guts and compatibility. So for all these reasons, it was best to call it quits. She thought with some disdain that no matter what if he tried to win her back, it would be a total waste. Fong Yi stayed silent, and noticing this, people thought he was either so shocked he had fainted or completely lost it. After all, she was the school's belle. They were expecting him to be groveling, begging for another shot. But looking at him, they simply concluded he was no match for a rich and stunning girl like a toad dreaming of a swan. With a calm expression, Fong Yi agreed to part ways with her, leaving Chuch Ching Lee and the spectators in disbelief. Seeing she had said all she wanted, our boy turned his back to her and made to leave. She freaked out and yelled after him. With a sharp glare, Fong Yi spun around and asked what she wanted. Her eyes ablaze with fury, she made it clear she couldn't care less about his thoughts or what tactics he might use. She wasn't about to go back with him and wanted that crystal clear. Fong Yi then stared at her and told her not to flatter herself, calling her the school beauty. Her eyes widened in shock upon hearing that, and a blush crept onto her cheeks. The bystanders were shell-shocked by Fong Yi's sass. Fong Yi knew that Chuch Ching Lee and the others were oblivious to what was about to unfold. He knew society's current values of wealth and education were about to be tossed into the bonfire. They were completely unaware that he had returned from a future disaster, a man reborn in this timeline. To him, the Chuch Ching Lee in front of him was merely a stranger from another lifetime. Fong Yi left the school, his mind on more pressing matters. For him, school crushes and social standing were trivial since everything was about to get a major overhaul. The real crisis looming was one that threatened all humanity on Blue Star. It all kicked off the night before when Fong Yi awoke to discover some peculiar cracks revealing his future. Then the system chimed in, announcing that an aura recovery had been spotted. Its full activation would roll out in 364 days, 11 hours, and 59 minutes. And when that happened, the world would undergo a transformation like no other. Fong Yi was a bit confused. Several figures appeared before him, and the system laid it out that society's rules would be rewritten. The era of cultivators was about to dawn, and with its strength would become the new currency. Our boy felt a twinge of curiosity, stretched out his hand, and asked who they were. Then a weird light started glowing in front of him. A system window popped up explaining that it hailed from the depths of the universe and utilized top-tier algorithms integrated with cosmic secrets. Its role was to automatically generate cultivation techniques based on spiritual materials the host interacted with, revealing that current techniques were a big fat zero. Fong Yi extended his hand, his eyes widening in astonishment as his hand slipped right through the system window. Suddenly, a monstrous creature erupted forth and let out a deafening roar. Fong Yi froze, his eyes widening with fear. Clutched in the monster's jaws was a corpse, and the system revealed that this was the end of his ordinary life and the fate of billions on Blue Star. Fong Yi swallowed hard, and he couldn't help but feel a wave of fright wash over him. He placed his hand over his chest, his eyes brimming with concern. Fong Yi began to reflect and recalled his past life. He had been just an average Joe, swept along by circumstances barely making it by with hopes of escaping disaster. But he had witnessed the downfall of his nation and the plight of its people. In the end, he couldn't dodge the mutated beasts. He remembered passing away in despair, fueled by rage and a fierce thirst for revenge. His eyes started to sparkle with determination as he contemplated that he couldn't escape those mutant beasts if his life depended on it. He remembered dying in utter despair, fueled by rage and a burning desire for payback. His eyes sparkled with determination as he came to the realization that maybe that's why he was selected by the system and brought back a year before the aura was revived. He started to stretch out his hand, fully aware that most folks had no clue about the tidal wave of change heading their way. Fong Yi poked at the system fragments and decided he'd use every weird thing caused by the aura to his advantage. The system kicked off a new evaluation. Our buddy's eyes lit up as the system happily informed him that it was all linked up. A brand new path was now open, and he could use anything in existence as materials. His mission: to gather killer techniques and powers to become a top-tier cultivator and save the world. Meanwhile, in the city, folks were told that humanity was facing a crisis like never before. Solutions were nowhere to be found in history. The only choice was to adapt with their own strength. Everyone was shocked except Fong Yi. When he checked his phone, he was bombarded with notifications. He realized that the government wasn't denying or confirming the bizarre phenomena, just telling everyone to brace themselves. He knew this was Jia Nation's sneaky way of giving a heads up, since reports that used to be dismissed as myth would never have blown up like this. His eyes filled with a touch of sorrow as he reminisced about the past. He understood that this indirect, low-key approach by Jia Nation helped citizens stay calm and trust their government. It was a tough and slow method, but way more effective than the chaos and gunfire of their neighboring countries. Then he recalled that the system had told him he could use anything, meaning he should go where the anomalies were happening. His focus was glued to his phone. The hottest news story was trending. The UV index at Ching University hit a historic once-in-a-century record. Because of this, a heat warning blared advising newcomers to take safety measures and slather on sunscreen. The students were a bit baffled, thinking even the top universities were resorting to ridiculous marketing stunts. They deemed it nonsense, believing it was just a paid topic to trend, since that kind of heat could actually be deadly. Fong Yi looked up at the sky, which was packed with clouds. Then he turned on the UV meter, and it showed 0. He was puzzled, not getting how the weather could be so different when Ching University was only 15 minutes away by car. Photos of a scorching sun over the university were circulating, and students were informed that registration for new students would carry on, but to steer clear of the north gate due to the high UV index. While all other gates stayed open, Fong Yi couldn't help but grin. He knew that when strange occurrences popped up for the first time, most people assumed it was a publicity stunt, and he was the only one in the know. His eyes sparkled with joy as his golden opportunity had finally arrived. Fong Yi threw on some fresh threads and headed to Ching University, where everyone was toting umbrellas. It was so toasty that the trees shifted into a state of shock, dropping their leaves. Our hero decided to hit the north gate of Ching University, the least crowded spot. He sensed something was definitely off in this area. Shiny ashes started to drift down from above. While students were making a mad dash to escape being scorched, Fong Yi remained fixated on it. He plopped down to check it out. Once his finger touched it, an intense glow erupted from it, and the system announced it had detected a major surge in the Yang attribute, unlocking the data template for it. Energy began flooding into Fong Yi's body, causing him excruciating pain. A bright glow began radiating from our boy. People shielded their eyes to avoid going blind. They had no clue what was happening and wondered if they were losing their minds. The energy started incinerating Fong Yi's clothes, making him grit his teeth hard. He put his hands on his head and started to lose it, not knowing if the system had finished compiling. He felt like he was on the brink of death. The compilation wrapped up, and Fong Yi snagged a Yang attribute technique, the Golden Sun breathing technique. Later, it was the day for new students to sign up at Ching University. Our main character's ex-girlfriend waltzed over to the registration area. A guy offered to help her with her suitcase. Before long, more guys were macking on her, but she brushed them all off, saying she didn't need any help. She glanced at a couple nearby with a smirk, but then a bright golden light flashed, catching her and the other students off guard. A loudspeaker blared for everyone to steer clear of the north gate. The girl's expression turned serious, and she decided to investigate what was going on. At the north gate, a massive explosion of golden energy lit up the area. A shadowy figure emerged from the smoke, radiating a strong vibe. He inhaled deeply, and his eyes glowed bright gold. A screen popped up announcing he had created a new technique and gained 50 points. The guy looked at the screen and wondered what the points could be for. He thought it wasn't a big deal right now, but figured it'd probably come in handy later. Time passed, and night fell with a funky-looking moon hanging in the sky. The young man started practicing his new breathing technique. The next day, a bright sun shone in the sky and a fresh energy spread throughout the university. A few students noticed the sky suddenly darken and cool for a moment as they bolted toward the north gate. A large crowd bunched up there, eager to see what was unfolding. The university dean was furious and questioned why no one heeded the warning to keep their distance. The group shoved through the throng. The crowd parts like the Red Sea as they strut to the center of the action. A hooded figure sporting a grave expression tells the dean to completely seal off the north gate. Meanwhile, a notification pops up for Fong Yi, letting him know he's just finished cleaning up a toxic wasteland. He discovers that the government's already hip to these hazardous zones and wonders if there are more folks like him out there. Just then, he hears an alert announcing no entry into the area, and our young hero realizes things just got real. The students spot some uniformed folks and start speculating if they're military personnel. From a nearby rooftop, Fong Yi notices the chaos is gathering a crowd of onlookers. With his red eyes shining brighter than a traffic light, he decides it's high time to make his exit and leaps off the building. Down below, the enigmatic hooded figure strolls across the ground, which has seen better days thanks to the energy burst. This mystery person scrutinizes the scene like a hawk. She kneels down, presses her fingers into the ground, and feels around for any leftover energy. Then she picks up a chunk of dirt for a closer inspection of the shenanigans that went down. As the hooded figure examines the debris, it dawns on her that a person triggered this energy. Just then, officials hustle the students away, while the hooded observer keeps her distance, looking on with keen interest. Among the throng, the guy's ex-girlfriend gasps, incredulous that just one person could pull this off. At that moment, she catches a glimpse of a shadowy figure leaping away and wonders if it was him, only to shake her head and dismiss the notion. With his grades, getting into this school was a long shot anyway. Meanwhile, at Fong Yi's crib, the sun sets and darkness falls. Lying on his bed, he grumbles about still feeling like a furnace, even after a cold shower. Fearful that the heat will keep him wide awake, he can't shake the feeling that someone might have spotted him during the day's chaos. He glances at his phone and sees a trending news article about a cultivation association. Remembering how everyone once scoffed at it as some internet prank, he suddenly thinks of the hooded individuals at the university and connects the dots. Intrigued, he opens the article for a detailed read. It breaks down the various cultivation levels stretching from spooky ghost acts to full-blown transcendence. In the comments, most people are adamant it's all just a gag, but he can't help but wonder if there's truth in this announcement. Fong Yi reflects on how clueless he was about all this in his previous life as your average Joe. Sitting on his bed, he gives more thought to the Cultivation Association and decides to give his technique another shot. He closes his eyes and channels his focus to kickstart his training. At that moment, he starts sweating as a powerful golden energy swirls around him. He begins to float, engulfed in a radiant golden aura. A light beams down on him. The first step is to fortify his body to harness the power of the universe. He successfully tames the energy and molds it into a divine axe. His eyes sparkle bright, and a grin spreads across his face as he feels a rush of strength. The system chirps that he's reached the douche level and gives him 50 more points. The guy recalls his points and checks the screen, which announces a new path has opened before him. The system elaborates that these points can be used to imbue objects with his compiled data. Dropping some serious thought into the idea, he looks at the mug on his table. He extends his hand toward it, radiating with a golden glow of power. The system prompts him if he wants to use 1 point to bless the mug with the Yang attribute. He realizes this is akin to enchantment, giving an object some special mojo. The young man muses that if he does this to a weapon, it might turn into his personal go-to for combat. He's convinced having a powered-up weapon will be crucial for whatever's coming his way. Spotting a small sword on his shelf, he decides to run the experiment on it. He figures if it works, he'll go ahead and grab a real weapon to prep for the monsters out there. Just then, a strange noise outside yanks his attention in the middle of the night. Outside, a monstrous creature with enormous claws lurks near Fong Yi's apartment. With glowing red eyes and razor-sharp teeth barely visible in the shadows, it resembles a giant demonic rabbit getting ready to pounce. But inside, our guy remains blissfully unaware of the impending danger. Reclining in bed, he feels uneasy due to the new cultivation technique. With his red eyes on high alert, he wonders about the rat-like noise he heard earlier. He concludes it can't be from inside or the plumbing, so perhaps it's a neighbor's pet. Meandering through the living room, he assumes it's just his enhanced hearing picking up on the neighbor's antics. Then, however, he focuses and listens more attentively to the mysterious sound, but soon realizes something's not right, and his instincts kick in. Fong Yi heads to the door and finds himself staring down the terrifying creature right there in the dimly lit hallway. In that dimly lit corridor, the ominous figure with those piercing red eyes stares back, ready to attack. Fong Yi jumps, recognizing this mutated beast. A chilling memory from his previous life sends a shiver down his spine. Simultaneously, a drone zips over the city under nightfall, revealing that others are clued into the danger lurking. On a rooftop, a young woman complains that they still haven't caught the rabbit that gobbled up a rare piece of fruit. With a lollipop dangling from her mouth, she appears surprisingly cool and collected, completely unfazed by the mission. She instructs her team to keep feeding her updates on the elusive target. Then, without missing a beat, the mysterious girl leaps from the building to embark on the pursuit. Plummeting fast, she nimbly navigates the towering structures of the city. Suddenly, she senses the mutated beast's aura and realizes she's closing in on it. With her eyes aglow, she finally spots the creature and readies herself for battle. The stealthy hunter lands forcefully on a rooftop. After that, the mysterious girl leaped off the top of the building to kickstart the chase. Plummeting at breakneck speed, she glided effortlessly between the towering city skyscrapers. And then, out of the blue, the young woman sensed the mutant beast's energy and realized she was closing in on it. With her eyes lighting up, she finally spotted the creature and prepared herself for a showdown. The enigmatic hunter landed with a thud on a rooftop. With some serious skills, she zips down a building while getting the order to chase the target at all costs. Performing a flawless landing, this young lady keeps the chase rolling without a hitch. Bounding from one rooftop to another, she warns that the critter munched on a special fruit and may be evolving. Just then, a late-night office worker spots a blur zoom past his window and is left utterly puzzled. He questions his eyesight, but his boss yells at him for just standing there like a statue. Meanwhile, the hunter looms like a silent shadow on the 65th floor. Back at the apartment, Fong Yi is staring down a bizarre creature that lets out a scream. With his golden eyes, he knows he's leveled up and is now ready for a fair fight. The creature lunges with its claws, but the young man slips away with jaw-dropping speed. Fong Yi realizes his body has genuinely changed, and he can now see the attacks coming in slow motion. Clutching some sun energy in his palm, he wonders why a mutated monster is crashing the party so soon. Flashbacks from his past life hit him hard, and he faces the beast. He knows this creature hasn't fully evolved yet, which just makes it angrier. So he dives in for the attack, realizing he needs to take it down, or else everyone in the building is toast. Fong Yi manages to snag the creature with his energy-infused hand. With surprising strength, he bites down on the strange monster without a shred of fear. Holding the beast tight, his golden eyes glow with a laser-focused intensity. Then the young man twirls the creature through the air and spots its tail as a weak point. Seizing the moment, he grabs that tail with all his might. Fong Yi slams the monster against the window, which shatters under the impact. With his fist radiating gold, he gears up to deliver a powerhouse punch. He unleashes a beam of energy that strikes the creature mid-air. The monster is completely engulfed by the blinding golden light. But the odd creature snags the golden energy with its claws and tries to absorb its power. Fong Yi quickly realizes that the monster is aiming to hijack his yang power, and he fights back like a champ. He thinks the sun's power is just too immense, and that this beast is simply setting itself up for a massive fail. Moments later, a golden explosion envelops the monster, which can't handle that much energy. In the building next door, a couple stirs awake from the ruckus, and the man wonders if that was thunder rolling in. He peers out the window and finds nothing out of the ordinary. Our hero lands on the floor surrounded by what's left of his golden energy. The young man muses that the creature was like a starving ghost trying to suck his power dry. After the scuffle, the monster's eye plops to the ground, releasing weird black smoke. With a serious expression, he scrutinizes the remnants of the creature he just took down. Without a second thought, he stomps down hard on the eye, crushing what's left of the beast. He realizes that the nighttime creature was desperately craving his opposing Yang-style power. The young man thinks that if he were an average Joe, the beast would have easily snacked on everyone in the building. With that in mind, he knows it's time to pick up more techniques to face the dangers looming ahead. In the meantime, a mysterious girl leaps gracefully through the moonlit air, looking every bit the hunter. Moving with incredible speed, the young woman races down the side of a building. When she arrives at the scene, the enigmatic hunter's eyes widen in utter shock. Standing there in the moonlight, she wonders if someone else managed to take down her target. Crouching on the ground, she observes that her target has been defeated and that she'll try to recover the night attribute. But as she touches the monster's remains, she is taken aback by a golden energy still lingering. The young woman is hit by a wave of intense heat and a burning power, making her instinctively pull back. She remembers the energy from the university gate and realizes this isn't just a coincidence. After this revelation, she powers up her communicator with a serious, determined aura. She reports to her base that her target was eliminated by a powerful newcomer with a unique ability. A voice crackles through her communicator asking if this same individual cleared the gate and took out the beast. A man confirms that they have zero intel on this person and that they really need to recruit him. The silver-haired girl nods in agreement. She then carefully stashes the tiny flame of energy into a container on her outfit. Her boss instructs her to halt her other missions and zero in on finding this new forerunner. At that, the mysterious hunter calmly unwraps the lollipop she's been holding. She pops the candy into her mouth and says she gets the new orders perfectly. But before diving into the mission, the girl announces she first needs to grab some milk tea to unwind. A voice on the communicator wonders who this enigmatic person with such immense power could be. The young woman concurs that the president was right and that she needs to meet this formidable master. Fong Yi's day kicks off with the sunrise. He stretches primed for some training. He knows that waking up early is a game changer for his power, so he gears up for another rigorous session. The fighter taps into his breathing technique, soaking in the golden energy of the morning. As the energy floods into him, his eyes shine with a golden glow. He enters the Ghost Axe realm and feels the technique's power surge through him. A sudden burst of energy catches him off guard. He realizes he's beefing up again. Power courses through his veins and he concentrates to maintain control. He clenches his fist tight, feeling the energy blazing in his hand. He conjures his key axe and notices it feels way lighter than before. He grips the handle firmly, ready to put his newfound strength to the test. The warrior hoists the golden axe high over his head. He's brewing up quite the hit. Fong Yi steps into the 2-star Ghost Axe realm, flexing his muscles. His eyes are practically shooting out golden flames now. That's some serious glow-up. He feels like he's been pumping iron on steroids after this power boost. He's bulking up quicker than a kid at a candy store because he tapped into the extra energy from his last upgrade. So from now on, Fong Yi decides to level up nice and slow, one careful step at a time, like a cautious little turtle. But of course, his growing power is like a flashy neon sign attracting all the attention. He realizes he needs to find a quieter hideout. Meanwhile, in the association's office, a dude senses something fishy in the air and notices the sun's energy doing the cha-cha. He starts to think, oh no, not that new guy again. Fong Yi finds a chill spot by the river to plot his next move. Out of nowhere, a system screen pops up and he's like, sweet, let's add some pizzazz to my weapon. He remembers trying this with another item, but it couldn't handle the heat. This time, though, the new blade is vibing with his energy, making a solid connection. Ding, a system message pops up saying the item encoding was a smash hit. He's buzzing with excitement over his shiny new weapon and is ready to unleash its fantastic power like it's Black Friday. And boy, does the test blow him away with the sword's unbelievable energy. A massive golden beam of light shoots straight up into the heavens. The warrior lands like a boss with his sword ablaze, feeling an electric surge of power flow through him. He nearly sets off a forest fire with that swing. Yikes, talk about dangerous. The smoke billowing from his attack is massive, so he knows he's got to scram. Meanwhile, a girl is sprinting towards the smoke cloud he left behind, grumbling that she stepped away for just a sec and missed all the action. Suddenly, she stops stops in her tracks. Whoa, the river's actually boiling. The agent zooms over the wrecked area, thinking, what on earth did the new guy do this time? She can already picture herself getting chewed out because things have gone south ever since he showed up. Just then, a golden glimmer in the distance piques her curiosity, and she's like, what fresh chaos could that be? The hunter is utterly flabbergasted by what she senses. This is beyond the pale. His power levels skyrocketed from 1 star to 2 stars, and he even whipped up a spirit weapon. The association has only 2 of those bad boys, and the recipe is a closely guarded secret. And the girl's suspicions are rising. How did this kid get such power on his own? But she brushes it off as her imagination running wild and decides to just clean up the mess he left behind. Meanwhile, far away, Fong Yi is thinking about how his weapon has the yang attribute now, but he's greedy for more. The system can encode anything, so he figures, why not add more features to my blade? Suddenly, his phone buzzes like it's having a mini tantrum. He's got a message from some unknown number. Whoops, forgot about keeping it low-key. And now, a mystery stranger is inviting him to join a group of pioneers. He's flabbergasted to find out that the official members need to be at least at Ghost Act's realm level. The stranger talks about a brand new pollution zone and asks him to hop on a group hunt. He inquires about the details, and the stranger sends him info about the lava dragon of the Shadow River. This place has lava and the same yang attribute he just scored, so Fong Yi's like, count me in. Meanwhile, way over in the Binmu district, a group is anxiously awaiting the arrival of old Lee's pal. One member says that the girl's map was so good, he sailed there in a breeze. The blonde girl thanks everyone for coming together and says they need to buddy up. She's from the Cultivation Association and is a bit bummed that the pioneers here aren't packing much heat. What most folks don't realize is that the Cultivation Association is government-related. Joining the group was no easy feat and required her family to pull some strings, so she hates the idea of slipping up. Just then, one of the explorers spots the newbie rolling in and hollers, "Hey, Fang!" Fong Yi makes a dramatic entrance with his fabulous new sword and introduces himself with flair. The agent's jaw drops at his power, but she notices his aura is more like a cozy campfire than a scary monster. Now that the whole team is gathered, the leader gives the signal and off they go toward the cave entrance. Fong Yi steps up and volunteers to lead the way, telling the blonde agent to keep the light steady. The group walks through the cave, and one of them warns Fong Yi about loose rocks ahead. They find it odd that it's not sweltering in there yet. Fong Yi thinks about how quickly they welcomed him and feels like their camaraderie is legit in these tough times. Fong Yi presses on, but soon the ground under him shifts. Colors. Uh-oh, danger lurks. Suddenly, they burst into a massive opening and are left gaping at a river of boiling lava right in front of them. Without a second thought, Fong Yi bolts toward the danger zone, and the blonde agent screams at him not to be so reckless. To everyone's astonishment, the warrior shoves his sword straight into the lava. The explorers freak out, yelling for someone to do something. A fiery explosion sends the team reeling back, while Fong Yi's system picks up on a worldwide problem and starts analyzing the chaos. As he plunged his sword into the lava, Fong Yi's system flagged the anomaly, unveiling a new power, the inner flame with an incredibly high temperature and explosive qualities. Plus the Scarlet Flame sword technique, which unleashed its explosive power when the blade was unsheathed, igniting it with fire and lightning. Determined, Fong Yi clutched his sword. His eyes and the blade shimmered with fiery energy, making it the perfect technique for his Tang sword. Below, the other explorers who got tossed by the earlier explosion stared in awe at Fong Yi, who was unharmed in a fiery vortex. Realizing his weapon was devouring the lava's energy, Fong Yi then used his script points to permanently embed the Scarlet Flame attribute into his sword, which now blazed with vigor. When the flames finally settled, his teammates assumed he had faced a tiny cultivation blunder and had recovered just fine. The group erupted in cheers, noticing that the cave's spiritual energy had finally stabilized. His teammates assumed he had a minor training accident, but had bounced back pretty well. The crew was on cloud 9, noticing that the cave's spiritual energy had calmed down. One of them was pumped about being able to soak it all up effortlessly, while another, ready to kick off his training journey, excitedly yelled out Zhao Ya's name. The blonde agent, Zhai, cheered them on to train while she kept a lookout, and the team thanked her for the chance. But then, Sha noticed some figures sneaking up to the entrance and warned that other newcomers were rolling in. Three beefy dudes strolled in, with one leading the pack sporting an eye patch and glowing red eyes, boldly proclaiming that this treasure-filled land now belonged to them. Shia started to get anxious, recognizing that all three of the new guys were at the one-star Ghost Axe level, a tier her team couldn't hope to face. Despite the looming threat, Xiao Ya tried to talk sense into them, politely pointing out they had arrived first, even offering to let them come along for the ride. Her attempt at diplomacy was met with sneers. The eye patch guy laughed at her low level and told them to scram or face the music. Xiao Ya's face stiffened. She thought about the harsh truth of survival of the fittest in this new age, but as a member of the Zia Nations Association, she decided she couldn't just sit back and let this injustice slide. Just when things were about to get ugly, Fong Yi jumped in between Xiao Ya and Mr. Tough Guy. With his sword all fired up, he coldly asked the big dude if he couldn't find something better to do than pick on a young lady. The eye patch leader stood there, struck dumb and speechless. Without missing a beat, Fong Yi unleashed a single mega swing that created a fiery explosion, sending the three tough guys flying. The blast of his attack startled Fong Yi's teammates out of their meditation. He remembered the disasters caused by those who followed the survival of the fittest philosophy, knowing that only sheer brute force would get through to people like that. To drive home his point, Fong Yi slammed his blade into the ground in front of the rival leader, surrounded by a massive golden aura. He coldly told them to get lost. Terrified by this second display of power, the leader freaked out and called Fong Yi a monster, screaming for his crew to run as Fong Yi watched them bolt. His teammates rushed over, buzzing with excitement over his spectacular display of power. Fong Yi just smiled, brushing it off and suggesting it was time to beat it. As they left, Xiao Ya pondered the immense power Fong Yi had just displayed. Realizing he had been holding back, convinced he was a top-tier pioneer, she knew she had to report this major find to her organization right away. The scene shifts to the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association office, where a woman on the phone with Jia gasped in surprise that another high-level pioneer had shown up. The office worker grew flustered, realizing she had blurted out too much, especially with a scary-looking guy looming behind her. She awkwardly hung up after confirming the report. The young woman cheerfully asked her gray-haired boss if they were lucky enough to have two high-level pioneers pop up in a row. He, however, grimly corrected her that luck had nothing to do with it, explaining that every high-level individual is bound to become a new center of power, a responsibility that weighed on him heavily. Under a bright blue sky, Fong Yi made his way back to the city. He tried blending in as a cosplayer, but his powerful vibe and real sword only attracted more stares. His trek was interrupted when he noticed on his phone that news of the cave incident had gone viral. He mentally kicked himself for being careless, knowing his flare-up of internal flame was way too noticeable, dismissing the idea that his teammates might turn on him. He focused on a more pressing issue. The enormous yang energy he had absorbed was pushing him toward a new breakthrough. He needed to find a quiet spot and make a beeline for the back mountain. 5 minutes later, on that same mountain, a silver-haired young woman named Chuch Ching Lee, a garden restoration pro, felt some crazy powerful energy. She spotted an intense burst of light like a mini sun and recognized the signs of a cultivator getting ready to break through to the 3-star Ghost Axe level. The sheer scale of the energy blew her mind. She never thought a breakthrough to that level could be so monstrous. Driven by duty and a jolt of recognition, she raced toward the commotion, vowing she would catch this mysterious person this time. High on the mountain, Fong Yi was laser-focused on his breakthrough. He sucked in massive amounts of golden energy swirling around him before it formed a bright sun-like ball above his head. As he meditated in midair, the power behind him shaped into a complex, star-like divine form. Golden sparks raced across his skin, and his eyes shimmered with great power as he wrestled with the wild energy. Finally, the energy coalesced into the shape of a giant divine axe made of pure gold and light blue energy buzzing with power. Meanwhile, Chuch Ching Lee showed up and came to a screeching halt when she witnessed the awe-inspiring scene. She gaped in disbelief, seeing that the mysterious figure was about to swing the divine axe he'd just conjured up. His level of control was nothing short of impressive. She wondered how anybody could command so much spiritual energy with such perfect skill and steadiness, questioning if this dude had secretly been training for centuries. The sight triggered a painful memory. Chuch Ching recalled her own attempt to break through to the Ghost Axe 2-star level. The pressure from her own divine acts had been too much for her, sending her reeling and making her cough up blood. It had left her bedridden for a full week. Sure, she was naturally strong, but even she had failed miserably. She couldn't understand how this monster could handle a breakthrough that was so much more powerful than hers. As she ran closer, she was even more blown away. The sheer amount of spiritual energy, the flawless execution with every swing of the axe, and every ounce of power looking like it was purified 1,000 times over. It was beyond anything she had ever witnessed. She figured this dude wasn't just some amazing monster. He was like a celestial being who had dropped down from the heavens. Plus, she noticed how calm and collected he was. Most pioneers, when they sensed a breakthrough, would be like a bull in a china shop. But this fella moved with the grace and wisdom of an ancient master. Her thoughts hit a brick wall when the colossal, fiery divine axe suddenly began to move. She watched in awe as it swung purposefully toward the east. At the height of his power, Fong Yi's eyes blazed with pure golden light as tendrils of raw energy cracked across his face. He floated inside a blinding storm of golden power, skillfully reining in the colossal amount of energy he had gathered for his transformation. Then a system window popped up confirming he had made it. He had reached the Ghost Axe realm at 2 stars. The new divine axe came crashing down, unleashing its full power in a massive shockwave that rippled across the mountain. Chuch Ching was caught up in that powerful blast, struggling to keep her balance against the wave of golden energy. The leftover force sliced through the forest like a hot knife through butter before it finally fizzled out. But when she looked up, the mysterious guy was nowhere to be found. Panting from the exertion and frustration, Chuch Ching Lee couldn't believe she had lost track of him again, especially since she had only just arrived in 30 seconds flat. A nagging thought popped into her head. He must have known she was on his tail. She fretted that if he kept being this elusive, her mission to recruit him would be an uphill battle. Just as she was about to throw in the towel, a bright idea struck her. She glanced away from the path of destruction toward a giant old tree that was now glowing with a soft, leftover golden light. With a newfound sense of certainty, she called out into the seemingly empty woods, addressing him as senior and asking if he was still around. From the forest shadows, Fong Yi emerged, his hooded figure radiating cool confidence. His glowing red eyes were fixed on Chuch Ching Lee. He immediately recognized her as the person who had been snooping around for the last few days. Seeing that she had been spotted, Chuch Ching Lee steadied herself and introduced herself properly. She explained that she was the captain of the Firefly Squad, part of the Spiritual Practitioners Association of Shia Nation and one of the nation's first pioneers. On behalf of the association, she earnestly invited him to join. She confessed she had been tailing him for 2 days and hoped he wouldn't think poorly of her methods. As she spoke, Fong Yi stayed silent, his expression unreadable beneath his hood. Chuch Ching noted that while it wasn't public knowledge yet, all the official papers for the association were ready to go. Inside, though, she was a bundle of nerves, carefully choosing her words and fretting if she was annoying him or ticking off the powerful guy. She knew she had to sound soft and respectful. Just then, Fong Yi cut through her carefully prepared speech with a straightforward question. Why should I join? His blunt question completely took her by surprise. She stumbled over her words, panicking about how to respond. She quickly realized that flowery words would be useless against someone this sharp. The truth was her only option. Regaining her composure, she explained the purpose of the association. She told him that the Xia Nation aimed to gather and unite all the early pioneers, guiding them on an organized path while offering extra protection. She acknowledged that growth was chaotic right now, and that to a free spirit like him, an association might feel like a cage. But she urged him to consider the bigger picture. A great return of spiritual energy was on the horizon, and they would all need to band together to confront the uncertainties ahead. After hearing her passionate speech, Fong Yi casually leaned against a tree, looking laid back and uninterested. He told her plainly he wasn't game to join. He explained that for now, he couldn't fully trust her or the association she represented. Chuch Ching was left utterly dumbfounded and speechless by his direct refusal, her eyes wide as saucers. Facing his defiance, she became desperate. She quickly pulled out her ID card from her jacket, waving it for him to see. Once again, she introduced herself as Chuch Ching Lee, mentioning she used to be a well-known athlete before the spiritual energy returned. She pleaded with him to believe her, hoping her public persona would give him a reason to trust her. Fong Yi paused to consider her words. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, saying he vaguely remembered her. His mind conjured up an image of her in a framed picture, celebrating like a champ when she was the runner-up in the CIA nation's long-distance championship. He realized her natural athletic prowess was what made her such a quick and skilled pioneer. Yet his expression turned serious. A dark memory from his past life flashed in his mind, showing him a vision of a devastated city. He recalled that in his original timeline, the Sea Nation's efforts, including the association, had ultimately failed, leading to the downfall of humanity. Now that he was back with his system, he knew he had to be part of the solution. Yet joining the association at this point didn't seem like the smartest move. Adopting a more contemplative look, he glanced back at a hopeful Chuch Ching Lee and affirmed that he did remember her. He told her he would think over her offer, and before she could respond, he leaped into the air and vanished from the spot in a flash. She mentioned she used to be a well-known athlete before the spiritual energy returned. She pleaded with him to believe her, hoping her public persona would give him a reason to trust her. Fong Yi paused. He pondered her words. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, saying he now vaguely remembered her. His mind recalled a framed picture of her celebrating a victory as the runner-up in the CIA nation's long-distance championship. He recognized that her natural athleticism was what made her such a swift and effective pioneer. However, his expression then hardened. A dark memory from his previous life resurfaced, showing him a vision of a destroyed city. He remembered that in his original timeline, the Sea Nation's efforts, including the association, had ultimately crumbled, leading to humanity's demise. Now that he had returned with his system, he understood he had to be part of the remedy. But joining the association currently didn't feel like the right play. Shifting to a more thoughtful demeanor, he turned back to a hopeful Chuch Ching Lee and confirmed that he did remember her. He told her he would mull over her proposition, and before she could say anything, he sprang into the air and zoomed away from the spot. Just like a magician, he popped up right behind a surprised Chuch Ching Lee. He laid down the law she had to keep his whereabouts hush-hush for the time being. Inside his head, he observed her respectful demeanor and figured the group was walking on eggshells around powerful trailblazers who weren't on their team. He saw this as a golden opportunity to exploit. Chuch Ching tossed out a plan. She explained that their organization had sensed the energy from his breakthrough, and she needed to file a report. So she proposed crafting a report that was a cocktail of truth and fiction, to protect his identity while keeping her bosses from flipping their lids. After a thoughtful pause, Fong Yi gave her plan a thumbs up. Chuch Ching attempted to holler at Fong Yi as he endorsed her scheme, but in a flash, he vanished. She sprinted down the mountain after him, but it was like chasing a ghost. Worn out and cranky, she meandered along a forest path, grumbling about all the times she had failed to catch him, and how he seemed to be playing hide-and-seek with her now. She sighed, venting about the exhausting task of erasing the heavy energy trails he left behind after every escapade. Her rant was interrupted by a voice crackling in her earpiece, reminding her to stop fretting over the elusive pioneer and focus on her mission. The voice seriously warned her that those strange creatures were back again. Chuch Ching froze her eyes, popping wide, as she asked if they were really back. A chilling memory engulfed her mind, showing her surrounded by a pack of terrifying wolf-like creatures, mouths dripping with blood and eyes glowing red. She told herself she would never shake off the memory of those gruesome beasts. The story explained their nature. Cold, ruthless, and bloodthirsty monsters spawned from the pollution zones created by the resurgence of spiritual energy. They thrived in these areas, transforming into monsters that feasted on humans. Some could even disguise themselves as natural disasters, wreaking havoc and creating new pollution zones. If they weren't stopped, their destructive nature would let them keep devouring the human realm until nothing remained. Suddenly, a massive storm slammed into the city. The night sky glowed not with streetlights, but with constant, chaotic flashes of lightning. Rain dumped down like a bucket tipped over, and red alerts lit up on people's phones, warning them of the raging thunderstorm and advising everyone to stay indoors. Another alert blared that the Yu Huang mountain area was off limits due to flooding risks. From their windows, folks remarked they hadn't seen a storm this wicked in ages, with some joking that some powerful entity might be having a lightning showdown nearby. Crouched in a rainy alley, Fong Yi grimly watched the tempest, his red eye shining like it was auditioning for a horror movie. He could feel the colossal amount of lightning energy buzzing in the air, knowing it was no average storm, but another anomaly. With its power concentrated in one spot, his gaze pierced through the cityscape and zeroed in on a distant mountain peak, repeatedly getting struck by lightning. He had found the storm's epicenter. Without hesitation, Fong Yi dashed into the deluge, leaping across rooftops as he raced toward the mountain. When Fong Yi hit the base of Yu Huang Mountain, his system immediately alerted him to the presence of a pollution zone. He glanced up at the peak, but instead of its usual picturesque charm, he was met with a grim sight: skeletal remains scattered among gnarled trees. Another system notification added to his woes, stating the pollution level was off the charts. Regardless, Fong Yi pressed on, stepping boldly into the shadowy storm-lashed woods with a resolute expression. As he got nearer to the center of the storm, a colossal bolt of blue lightning struck the mountain's summit, illuminating the entire area. He had found his target. Inside the Spiritual Practitioners Association's command center officials were having a nail-biting meeting. A gigantic screen showcased a swirling vortex of blue energy over a mountain peak. One official reported that the danger on Mount Yu Huang was escalating rapidly, prompting them to seal it off and declare it a new contamination zone. The solemn-faced association leader declared the situation was so dire, he had to pull Chuch Ching from another critical mission. He requested her to update them on the situation. Chuch Ching informed the officials that climbing the mountain was currently out of the question, as the unstable thunder energy was on the brink of blowing up. Because of this, the area was officially designated as an A-level contamination zone. She went on with even more alarming news. Given the speed of the energy surge, the mountain was about to escalate to a S-level threat, which would activate their ultra-high emergency plan. But she flagged a major hiccup. According to their findings, no explorer they had could safely approach the area, admitting that even she couldn't handle it. A wave of disbelief swept through the room, as calculations indicated the mission would be certain doom, even for seasoned explorers. Facing this grim scenario, a man clad in a security uniform commanded the foot of Mount Yu Huang to be completely sealed off, with patrols dispatched 24/7 to ensure no one dared to attempt to climb. The association leader concurred firmly. He declared that they needed to thwart the threat by sealing the mountain and that no one could get close until the energy concentration dropped. While the association deemed Mount Yu Huang too hazardous, Fong Yi was already well within the zone. Massive bolts of blue lightning rained down around him as the storm intensified. Fong Yi stood resolute, shielded by a golden aura from his breathing technique. However, he knew that merely weathering the storm wasn't enough. To harness the purest thunder energy, he had to ascend to the apex of the storm at the mountain's peak. The association leader nodded firmly in agreement. He announced they had to put an end to the menace by sealing off the mountain and forbidding anyone from approaching it until the energy levels dropped. Meanwhile, while the association considered Mount Yu Huang too risky, Fong Yi was already deep in the heart of it. Massive bolts of blue lightning crashed down around him as the storm unleashed its fury. Fong Yi stood his ground, shielded by a golden glow thanks to his breathing technique. However, he knew just standing there weathering the storm wouldn't cut it. To snag the purest thunder energy, he had to scale the mountain to the center of the chaos. His choice was powered by some seriously dark flashbacks. He understood that the creepy crawlies they were up against now were just the first act, and the real nightmares were still warming up backstage. He figured out that his fiery powers weren't going to cut it for the roller coaster of chaos ahead. He needed to bulk up, not just lean on his trusty weapon. Surrounded by zapping lightning, Fong Yi spotted a golden opportunity to soak up the thunder energy and amp up his own strength. He knew if he didn't seize this shot to beef himself up, he was toast in the face of the disasters looming ahead. With his eyes shining like gold, he pulled out his flaming sword and with a fierce shout slammed it right into a massive bolt of blue lightning. The wild energy surged through his body, sending waves of agony, but he kept his game face on. His body convulsed as the electricity shot through him. He realized that this thunder power was like some divine slap on the wrist, actively fighting him in this chaotic showdown. The storm was furious he had intruded and seemed to be saying, "Give up already." Gazing at the tumultuous skies, he pondered how he could possibly make such raw power listen to him. And then a light bulb went off in his head. He steadied himself and recalled his system's motto: to harness a power, you gotta touch the source. A golden aura erupted from him as he unleashed his golden sun-breathing technique. With a fierce roar, Fong Yi charged ahead, using his flaming sword to carve a path through the storm of blue lightning. The clash of his golden energy and the raging storm created a massive explosion. Blood dribbled from his mouth from the strain, but his eyes burned with a fierce determination. He knew he was rolling the dice on a desperate gamble and had to push his limits, facing death to snag life. Finally, after a grueling battle, he reached the zenith. He plunged his sword into the earth, splitting the rock as he stepped into the storm's eye. Here, the power was monstrous. A violent surge of thunder energy made it feel like he was trying to breathe underwater. He realized the storm was now fully focused on him and no longer just wanted to shove him away. It aimed to wipe him out. As if to underline that point, the storm gathered its full might and hurled a mega beam of white-hot lightning straight at him. An attack designed to obliterate him completely. As Fong Yi faced the storm's last onslaught, his system kicked in, identifying a powerful thunder attribute and starting to process it. Far below in the city, folks were watching from the rooftop of a tall building. One guy snapping pictures could hardly believe his eyes. He'd never seen lightning this big. Another dude speculated if a god was going through some major trials, even claiming he spotted a person zooming through the sky. At the mountain's peak, the showdown concluded in a spectacular explosion. Fong Yi had emerged victorious. A system alert chimed in, confirming he had snagged refined divine thunder power and could now summon heavenly lightning to turn his body godlike. He won 5 writing points. Fong Yi was now floating in midair, surrounded by blue lightning and a golden aura. He got the hang of his new power. The thunder attribute was a top-tier weapon for both offense and defense. Unlike his sun power, which mostly played the defense game, the thunder could refine his body into pure energy. He decided the thunder would serve as his spear and shield. He also perceived that this power wasn't just about destruction, it was also about cleansing and rebirth. He felt the energy solidifying his bones and muscles without any discomfort. The system then dangled an upgrade to punish evil, promising double critical damage, asking if he wanted to spend writing points to snag it. As he landed softly, Fong Yi pondered his next move. His first thought was to channel this new thunder power into his Tang sword. He weighed it carefully. While it would beef up the blade, he was concerned it might mess with the sun attribute's purity already embedded in it. He also knew that stuffing too many different powers into one item could wreck it or even obliterate it. Then out of nowhere, a brilliant idea hit him. Gazing at his hand, he decided to do something totally different. He would implant the thunder attribute straight into his right hand. The system quickly responded, asking if he wanted to inject the thunder attribute into the selected item. A cocky grin spread across his face as he gave the green light. Instantly, all the wild blue lightning in the air surged into his right hand as he claimed the storm's power for himself. The next day at the storm-wrecked summit of Mount Yuang, the imminent danger had vanished. Below a cliff, Su Ying and an army officer named Major Han Lee surveyed numerous figures wrapped up in body bags. Chuch Ching Lee reported that the contamination zone's energy had bizarrely dropped from its most dangerous level to a mild level in just 3 hours. Though some static still lingered in the air, Major Han Lee took in her words and quickly pieced together what had unfolded. Someone had been there. It was a seeker, someone actively hunting for these dangerous happenings. Chuch Ching Lee was taken aback, wondering if another seeker was involved and could have made it out alive. She knelt down, searching for clues, but couldn't sense anything, guessing that the heavy rain had washed away any trace. She concluded that the seeker must have safely skedaddled off the mountain around 8 p.m. the previous night. Major Han Lee nodded in agreement with her timeline. The strange event kicked off around 6 p.m., and the army sealed the mountain at 7 p.m. So, the seeker must have scaled the mountain before they shut it down. He noted that their tools predicted the danger would peak at grade S, but after 8 p.m., the energy unexpectedly plummeted. The seeker must have climbed the mountain before it got shut down. He noted that their tools warned that the danger would hit grade S, but after 8 o'clock, the energy plummeted out of nowhere. Standing at the spot where the lightning had struck hardest, the Major shared his wild theory. He figured the seeker didn't just survive the lightning, he probably snagged himself a thunder-related superpower, flipping that disaster right on its head for a major opportunity. He concluded that this mysterious person was the direct culprit behind the sudden shift. The major then spilled his biggest fear. People like that were the most unpredictable, like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs because they didn't even know whose team they were on. Shinji completely agreed, chiming in that if someone that powerful was posing a threat, the chaos they could unleash would be enormous. They needed to hunt him down fast. Meanwhile, miles away, and clueless about the military operation zeroing in on him, Fong Yi let out a thunderous sneeze. Back on the mountain, Major Han Lee made his decision and barked out a clear order to his troops. Find this person immediately, no matter what. As soon as he gave the command, he dubbed the elusive target with a temporary nickname, the Tyrant. The search on Yuhuang Mountain kicked off without delay. The army was banking on the Spiritual Practitioners Association to reel in this mysterious tyrant soon. In the meantime, they'd keep all the juicy details under wraps and launch their own investigation. On the rainy peak, the association's leader informed Major Han Lee that they had a top-tier pioneer trying to establish contact. He then turned to Chuch Ching Lee and ordered her to present her report to the major. Chuch Ching Lee was blindsided by the order and gasped in shock. With her mind racing, she began to spill her half-true report. She linked the current fiasco to the pioneer who had recently tackled the pollution mess at a local university. Inside, panic was bubbling up as she worried about saying something that could blow her cover with Fong Yi. She explained how she had been attempting to reach him, but he was elusive as a cat in a dog park. She even mentioned discovering the remains of a mutated rabbit he had taken down and correctly identified his yang flame attribute from the clues. She wrapped up her report by promising to do her utmost to get close to him and find out how he managed to clear that university's gate. Silent prayers for help streamed through her mind, knowing that mixing just enough facts with fibs was her ticket to sounding credible. Major Han listened intently, contemplating what having a pioneer with a yang flame attribute implied. He seemed satisfied with her report and thanked her for her diligence, complimenting her as a gifted young pioneer. Chuch Ching Lee responded with a sharp salute and said it was all in a day's work. With the meeting wrapped up, Major Han Lee noted they should spread fake news about natural disasters to keep the public in the dark. He also mentioned that he wasn't keen on posting spiritual energy info online, where nefarious folks might take advantage. As the officials chatted, Chuch Ching Lee quietly sighed, relieved the intense grilling was finally over. Back at his place, Fong Yi used his golden sun-breathing technique to effortlessly dry his white hoodie, making it shimmer with a warm glow before presenting it perfectly clean and dry. After throwing it on, he checked out the changes happening in his body. Even with that powerful thunder attribute added, he could definitely feel a difference. He glanced at his right hand, now crackling with blue lightning. It had undergone a total transformation, becoming the most formidable part of him and scoring a massive upgrade. As he flexed his fingers, small balls of lightning danced around him, giving him the sensation that another upgrade was just around the corner. What took him by surprise was how the previously wild thunder attribute had settled down like a sleepy kitten after integrating with his body, allowing him to control it smoothly. He couldn't help but compare it to the excruciating agony he felt when he first unlocked the yang attribute, musing if the energies mellowed out during the process. Remembering the system's message that this new power dealt double damage to strange and evil creatures, he was itching to test it out. Just then, a loud buzz from his phone on the nearby table shook him from his thoughts. He snatched it up, curious about what was now unfolding. Having set up special news alerts after the last chaos, he knew the government would send out warnings to keep people safe. But for a pioneer like him, those warnings were more than just alarms. They were opportunities to level up, even if it meant risking life and limb. As Fong Yi debated his next move, he opened the major news alert on his phone. The report said a massive explosion had just rocked a chemical plant, causing a whole lot of pollution in the city. The official line claimed nobody was harmed and urged everyone to stay calm. But Fong Yi couldn't shake his suspicion. An event of this magnitude felt off. He scoured online forums where witnesses spun a far more terrifying tale. Locals reported a strange, creepy vibe they couldn't quite put into words. One person even asked if that unsettling feeling might be a cold, evil aura. Another eagerly chimed in with an agreement. While some were skeptical, the overall sentiment was one of impending doom. The phrase, cold, evil aura, rang a bell for Fong Yi. Suddenly, a horrifying memory from his past life flashed before him. a bloodied hand, a terrifying monster. He recalled cowering in fear from a gigantic red demonic beast that wreaked havoc all around. The creature, a grotesque, multi-eyed, rat-like abomination, was a presence that haunted him. Back in the moment, he straightened up serious as a heart attack. He remembered the nature of these beasts. They were plants or animals that went through bizarre transformations after becoming self-aware, their powers spiraling out of control, turning them into dreadful hunters with killer instincts. They thrived in the shadows of night. Realizing this new threat was exponentially more dangerous than the mutated rabbit he had tussled with before Fong Yi knew he had to act, clenching his fist. They were either plants or animals that had morphed in a really bizarre way after gaining self-awareness, gaining wild abilities that made them perfect hunters. They thrived on making their grand entrance under the cover of night. Realizing this new threat was 100 times more dangerous than that mutated rabbit he had tussled with earlier, Fong Yi knew he had to step up, clenching his fist. Fueled by his shiny new blue lightning, he made up his mind to head out that night to put an end to those pesky creatures before they got any stronger. Getting to his feet, he found himself enveloped in a shocking blue aura. It was finally time for him to put his brand new 200% critical hit ability to the test in an actual fight. On a dark and stormy night, rain poured down on the empty city streets. As the traffic light flipped, a flash zoomed past the slick pavement. A fast-moving squad of cloaked figures dashing like they were late for a meeting. These were the members of the Destroyer Squad, and they were on the hunt. One member radioed their headquarters explaining that they were following Anomaly File Number 7, codenamed Candle Night, but they had lost track of the little rascal. The creature was notorious for blending into the shadows, making it really tricky to keep an eye on it. The squad member added all sorts of spine-chilling details to the file. The anomaly made a faint sizzling sound when it was nearby and had a taste for human snacks. As lightning illuminated the sky, the squad landed on a rooftop surveying the city below. Their leader, a determined fellow with light hair and a scar that told stories of past battles, knew that the stormy weather was just what the creature ordered for its hunt. He declared with a serious face that they couldn't let that happen. Miles away in a buzzing command center, an operator received the latest scoop. He confirmed the new intel on File 7. Candle Night was officially on the radar. Things were heating up. An extermination request was marked as urgent, with a deadline to wrap it up in 12 hours. The orders came back from headquarters. The Destroyer Squad needed to keep on the beast's trail, but their safety was at the top of the list. The team sprang back into action, leaping across buildings in the rain-soaked city. The squad leader hit pause, staring at a glowing holographic map of the city dotted with red markers indicating active anomalies. He knew 12 hours wasn't the fastest turnaround, but it was the best headquarters could muster. The country was huge, and with anomalies popping up everywhere, even their top-tier resources were stretched thin. Just as the Destroyer Squad got close to their target's last known hangout, a warning buzzed in from headquarters. The operator informed them that the area they were headed into was currently being patrolled by agents from the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. A picture of Chuch Ching Lee flashed on the screen, as the operator explained that her team was monitoring pioneers in the area and they could be summoned for additional firepower. The Destroyer Squad's leader nodded at the message and requested headquarters to have her join the fun, mentioning he had heard great things about her skills. Meanwhile, Chuch Ching Lee was taken aback by her newfound fame. The Destroyer Squad stood solemnly in the rain waiting. Soon, Chuch Ching Lee and her cloaked team made their grand entrance, perching on a higher rooftop. With one hand on her hip, she looked down at the squad below and casually quipped about whether they were calling her in for some overtime. The Destroyer Squad's leader wasn't amused by her nonchalant vibe. He sternly reminded her that the Candle Night anomaly was a people-eater and not just some casual shift. One of Chuch Ching Lee's team members clapped back, questioning if that was the proper way to ask for help. Chuch Ching Lee rolled her eyes and turned away, declaring that the Destroyer Squad looked so capable they probably didn't need her assistance anyway. She made it clear that her team, the Ying Squad, would be heading out. As they turned to leave, her teammates murmured amongst themselves, one expressing concern about their boss's tough demeanor, while another defended her, citing that their own missions were dangerous too. The leader of the Destroyer Squad panicked and called for her to hold up. He apologized for his brusque attitude and pleaded for her support. He elaborated just how picking up Candle Night was a colossal deal, and without her renowned tracking finesse, they'd be in hot water. He stressed that if they fell short, the city folks would be in big trouble facing the monster's wrath. After a little negotiation, both teams stood together on a rain-drenched rooftop ready to kick some monster butt. Chuch Ching Lee zeroed in, and a brilliant blue orb of energy popped up in her hand. She declared she had located the creature. The orb's energy swelled, pinpointing the beast's hideout. Hiding in the damp, dark ruins of a chemical plant, the grotesque, multi-eyed rat monster known as Candle Knight was aiming to have a snack. Its file indicated it had a penchant for dark. With the target identified, Chuch Ching Lee gave the signal for the joint operation to commence. The creature's senses were sharp, and it noticed them right away, leaping out just in time as an attack whacked the ground where it had just been. A member of the destroyer squad yelled that the target had seen them and commanded the team to regroup. The squad sprang into action with phenomenal speed, their cloaks swirling as they pursued it. They closed in on the creature from all angles, and with their prey cornered, they yelled in unison, ready to pounce. One of the squad members charged ahead, shouting the order to strike. He connected with the creature hard, sending it crashing into a heap of rubble. However, instead of going down for the count, the monster's body began transforming, red sores and black spikes erupting from its back. With an enraged shriek, the furious Candle Knight retaliated, summoning a swirl of dark energy. Chuch Ching Lee shouted a frantic warning for everyone to dodge the incoming sound wave. But her plea came a moment too late. A deafening sonic blast erupted from the creature, hurling the squad members backwards. The leader of the destroyer squad was flung off the rooftop, crashing down onto the street below. One of his teammates rushed to his side. The leader struggled to push himself up, battered, but still breathing. He confessed that if he hadn't made a last-minute escape, its back exploding with red welts and black spikes. With a furious shriek, the enraged Candle Knight struck back, generating a whirlwind of dark energy. Chuch Ching Lee yelled desperately for the teams to brace for the sound wave and dodge. Alas, her warning came just a tad too late. A massive sonic boom erupted from the creature, sending the squad members flying like ragdolls. The destroyer squad's leader was hurled off the rooftop, crashing down onto the street below. One of his teammates dashed to help him. The leader pushed himself up, bruised but in one piece. He admitted if he hadn't made a last-minute move, his bones would have been toast. He knew they were in deep trouble. If that creature stuck around the city any longer, it would be a total catastrophe. The battle took a wild twist as Candle Knight kept evolving. It sprouted enormous bat-like wings and let out a roar that could wake the dead, its throat glowing like a neon sign with green energy. Then it unleashed a gross corrosive goo that filled the air with a nasty green fog. The creature aimed that nasty blast at the street, trying to melt it down to burrow underground and make a getaway. One of Chuch Ching Lee's team members warned her that the monster had a seriously corrosive power and anything it touched would be toast. She clarified that their team didn't have the firepower to take it on. However, Chuch Ching Lee kept her cool. She barked orders at her team to stay sharp and not mess up the destroyer squad's formation, reminding them their main job was to gather intel and help strategize. Meanwhile, a destroyer squad member with a dagger was ready to pounce on the fleeing beast. Suddenly, a pair of menacing red eyes glowed from the shadows. The winged Candle Knight launched itself forward, barely dodging an attack from a leaping squad member. Furious, the destroyer squad leader shouted at his team not to let the monster slip away. The winged creature zipped through the city streets, hotly pursued by the cloaked members of the Ying squad. From a high rooftop, Chuch Ching Lee and two of her teammates were watching the chaos unfold. Suddenly, she felt a sharp spike in spiritual energy coming from the creature's direction. Realizing something big was about to go down, she commanded her team to hang back while she chased it alone. The pursuit led them to a large, dark, abandoned factory. Inside, Chuch Ching Lee announced she'd scanned the spiritual energy in the area. The destroyer squad's leader spotted the high-tech watch on her wrist. She confirmed it was a new gadget from the association, explaining that the watch indicated the maximum energy a squad could handle was 50. Candle Knight's reading was just 48. Out of nowhere, the device on her wrist began to go haywire, the reading skyrocketing past 80. Chuch Ching Lee screamed that the energy levels were going bonkers. Just then, a massive shadowy form with glowing green eyes appeared in the rafters above. They had waltzed right into a trap. Chuch Ching realized with horror that there wasn't just one creature in the factory. The monstrous shadowy face of a new beast loomed ominously behind them. The destroyer squad's leader panicked, hollering that they needed to make a run for it. Taking charge, Chuch Ching Lee proposed a tactical retreat toward the main door to force the hidden enemy to show itself. She fired off a blast of energy to clear a path, yelling for her team to follow, but before they could escape, she cried out in pain and collapsed, overwhelmed by an invisible poisonous gas. Chuch Ching Lee suddenly found herself all alone in the vast green darkness of the factory. She called out for her team, but no one replied. She knew they were around, but the poison had rendered them unable to sense her. Putting the pieces together, she realized the full extent of the trap. Candle Knight had lured them to this factory, the domain of a way more powerful creature, a giant serpent she had only vaguely sensed before. As if summoned by her thoughts, the massive armored head of a shadowy serpent with glowing green eyes hovered over her. She understood now that, unlike Candle Knight's simple dark magic, this creature's black mist was a potent toxin, and they'd been inhaling it since they arrived. The gas worked quietly, paralyzing its victims while siphoning off their spiritual energy. Fighting back would just drain them faster, leading to inevitable doom. She could feel her own spiritual energy slipping away. And without it, she knew she'd soon be just another victim. As she collapsed to the floor, strength drained, she despaired at the horrific intelligence of a creature that was just toying with them. She closed her eyes, wondering if this was how it ended. Lying defeated on the factory floor, Chuch Ching Lee saw a single beam of light slicing through the green darkness above. A glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes. Suddenly, the factory ceiling exploded inward, and a blinding light flooded the room. Her eyes widened as a figure descended from the blast. It was Fong Yi. He landed smoothly in the rubble, his hooded figure sharply contrasting against the radiant hole in the ceiling. He stood in front of the giant serpent, immediately recognizing it as a dark attribute creature. Without warning, the serpent lunged its gigantic fangs aimed directly at him. At the same time, the Candle Knight monster burst from the shadows, attacking from behind. Fong Yi dodged the serpent's strike and came face to face with the growling, rat-like beast. As the two creatures closed in, he finally grasped the full extent of the trap he had walked into. In a bold move, Fong Yi let the Candle Knight monster bite his shoulder. As blood splattered, he noted their surprisingly clever tactics. One creature for luring prey, the other for the kill. He teased the beast, clinging to him, asking if it enjoyed munching on people. In response, he unleashed his new power. Bright blue lightning crackled from his body as he dared the monster to taste his thunder property. At the same time, he unleashed a massive beam of golden solar energy from his free hand, striking the lunging serpent head-on. Now electrified and free from the stunned rat creature, Fong Yi directed his full attention to the serpent, unleashing a torrent of golden flames as he challenged it to see how well it could handle the heat. The giant serpent lunged with a furious roar, its enormous mouth wide open, ready to gobble up its prey. With astonishing agility, he hit the lunging serpent head-on. Now charged with crackling electricity and free from the stunned rat creature, Fong Yi trained his full focus on the serpent, unleashing a rush of golden flames as he challenged it to take his fiery attack. The massive serpent lunged with an enraged roar, its gigantic mouth wide open to devour its prey. With remarkable agility, Fong Yi dodged the monster's attack with a slick flip through the air, his glowing golden sword gleaming like it was auditioning for a Gillette commercial. When he hit the ground, he coolly challenged the giant beast to admire his fancy weapon. The serpent flinched back, clearly reevaluating its life choices now that it was facing such a stunning blade. Seizing the moment, Fong Yi launched himself into the air and unleashed a mighty slash across the serpent's face. His sword electrified with crackling blue energy charged with his thunder powers. The impact was monumental, but the aftermath had him scratching his head. Instead of smashing its skull, the creature's head actually split open like a piñata, revealing a second identical head underneath. It was like this monster was doing a creepy shedding routine. Fong Yi landed gracefully, eyes wide, completely baffled by this twist of fate. The creature's head then completely pulled apart, like it was changing its outfit to reveal its fancy new healed form. As green energy pulsed through its neck, Fong Yi realized this was just the warm-up. The real fight was still on. The serpent reacted as if it had just stepped on a Lego, its body convulsing as the leftover thunder energy from Fong Yi's sword coursed through it. It roared in anger, and the electrical energy seemed to pump up like it was on a caffeine high. Watching the creature contort in agony, Fong Yi couldn't help but smirk just a little. He felt like he had the upper hand, especially knowing this serpent's dark aura was way stronger than that of the Candle Knights. He then revealed his diabolical plan. When he swung his sword, he had purposely held back on unleashing his full fiery potential. Instead, he had funneled his thunder power right into the snake's insides like a sneaky mailman delivering a letter bomb. Comparing the two creatures, he realized this serpent was a supercharged and evolved version of the Candle Knight. Suddenly, a sharp jab of pain hit his shoulder where the rat creature had sunk its teeth in. He winced, glancing down to see bizarre purple snake scales sprouting from the wound. Oh, he realized this was another clever mutant species. Its venom, courtesy of its buddy's bite, had a paralyzing kick that helped it take down prey silently. The wound hurt like a bad breakup, but thankfully he could feel his golden sun-breathing technique kicking in to kick the venom's butt. With a determined stare, he figured he had the ultimate counter. The Yang flame power was like his personal detox. The golden sun technique would shield and heal his body, while the thunder power acted like a bouncer kicking out any lingering poison. As the energy from his powers surged through him, Fong Yi acknowledged the perks of his magical cocktail. The fusion of his Yang flame and thunder powers now provided him with an early warning system for any poison that dared to mess with him. He counted himself lucky. Most folks would have had a tough time dealing with the serpent's sneaky venom. He figured for the serpent to grow that large, it must have made a career out of surprise attack tactics. Pictures of the monster's den filled with skulls flashed through his mind, and dark thoughts danced like bad memories. With the Candle Knight serving as premium bait, the duo had become a lethal trap even for the most seasoned pioneers, explaining the mysterious disappearances. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Watching the monster's gigantic skeleton get reduced to ash in his holy fire, he smirked, knowing its reign of terror was toast. As he stood before the flames, Fong Yi felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. His inner fire had proven to be a powerhouse, but it was the triple critical strike from his new thunder energy that had truly sealed the deal. He felt pretty confident about his combat skills now, even in the presence of other elite pioneers. He stood quietly for a moment, letting the flames flicker away the last remains of the creature. Just as he was about to strut away into the sunset, something made him stop and reach out his hand like he could sense a disturbance in the force. His eyes sharpened. He realized he wasn't flying solo. Someone else was around. He turned just in time to see a figure escape from the smoky darkness, coughing like they just finished a marathon. It was Chuch Ching Lee. She stood there covered in soot and looking as tired as a marathon runner who skipped training, but she was alive. As the smoke cleared, Fong Yi noticed the unconscious members of her squad with Chuch Ching Lee hanging out among them. He recognized her as the agent from the association and called her out, making it clear her playing dead act needed a little more work. The surprised look on her face was priceless. Completely embarrassed, Chuch Ching tried to hide her face. Realizing this was the powerhouse pioneer she had been tailing, she scrambled to make an excuse, claiming she woke up due to the smell. But Fong Yi wasn't buying it. He gave her a nod, pointing out that while her teammates were sapped of energy, she had kept just enough strength in reserve to look after herself. If she had really been knocked out, she wouldn't have caught a whiff of anything. Embarrassed and flustered, all Chuch Ching Lee could manage was an awkward thank you. Inside her head, she was totally amazed. How did he see right through her? Indeed, she had kept a smidge of spiritual energy for her defense. She was completely clueless about how he had single-handedly taken down both the Candle Knight and the giant serpent. Noticing her light blush, Fong Yi decided to lay off the heat a bit. He reassured her that there was no need to hide her eyes, and all he requested was that she be straightforward with him while keeping his identity under wraps. Seeing her and her team were safe, he said it was getting late and that he would be making his exit. Chuch Ching Lee opened her mouth to call after him, but it was too late. Explaining things would take away the drama, he declared, before gracefully vaulting through the hole he had created in the factory ceiling and vanishing into the night. As he leapt between rooftops, Fong Yi ruminated on the tussle. He was relieved Chuch Ching Lee hadn't tried to absorb the darkness from the monsters, recalling its frigid unpleasantry. Curious, he pondered why he couldn't absorb it himself. He guessed perhaps the dark energy was already out of commission, or maybe his body just rejected it outright. He resolved to, recalling its disgustingly icy touch. He wondered why he couldn't absorb it. Maybe the dark energy had fizzled out, or his body had instinctively shoved it aside. He resolved to just think about it later at home. Left all by herself in that gigantic empty factory, Chuch Ching Lee gazed up at the moonlit hole in the ceiling where Fong Yi had poofed out of existence. She let out a sigh, feeling bummed that she didn't catch a good glimpse of his face and realizing he still didn't trust her or the group. But her moment of peace didn't last long. Channeling her inner boss, she strutted over to the unconscious captain of the destroyer squad and gave him a few playful slaps, insisting he wake up. The dude groaned and slowly blinked his eyes open, looking like he'd just lost a boxing match. His first instinct was to panic, and he shot up, screaming that they had been ambushed. Chuch Ching Lee merely watched him with a chill expression. The leader and his crew then noticed why she was so unfazed. The enormous smoking skeleton of the giant serpent lay before them. They gaped in utter disbelief. Trying to wrap his head around the scene, the leader demanded to know what had gone down and where the powerful yang energy was coming from. Chuch Ching Lee coolly explained that a powerful pioneer had swooped in to save them. She continued with her well-crafted report, mentioning that this pioneer was likely the same person from her original mission, a super high-level individual with a yang trait. She let her voice drop off, implying that his appearance was just a stroke of luck. The other squad members were completely starstruck, with one exclaiming how unbelievable it was that a single person could take down both monsters. Chuch Ching Lee added that she hadn't managed to recruit him yet, and even he had tracked her down, making him an even bigger enigma. Getting back to the grim task at hand, the destroyer squad leader asked where Candle Knight's body was, while beginning to use a green energy technique to tidy up the scene. He mentioned they needed to gather the remains for the association. As the squads got to cleaning, the destroyer squad's leader wielded a green energy orb to collect the eerie dark remnants left over from the battle. As he moved forward, he accidentally stepped on a chunk of debris, which suddenly kaboomed in a flash of bright blue electricity. He jumped back in pain, yelping at the shock, while Chuch Ching Lee looked on wide-eyed. This latest discovery only deepened the mystery. The remains, which they now realized belonged to Candle Knight, were buzzing with residual electricity. The squad leader turned to Chuch Ching Lee, grilling her about her report. He reminded her that she said the pioneer had a yang trait, yet this mind-blowingly intense electrical power told a totally different story. The two leaders knelt down to examine the electrically charged body. Chuch Ching Lee was amazed by the sheer force of the leftover thunder power, confirming it was high-tier energy. This led the destroyer squad's leader to a new theory. Maybe there were two high-level pioneers, one to take out the serpent and another to finish off Candle Knight before hightailing it together. Chuch Ching Lee knew that wasn't the case. She wrestled with how to explain the unbelievable truth, recalling the vision of the lone pioneer, wielding both crackling blue lightning and roaring golden fire. She understood that no one would buy the idea that one person could have two different top-tier powers. Just having one made you a genius. Having two, that was almost mythological. The jaw-dropping proof was right in front of them. The smoldering skeleton of the massive serpent was the handiwork of a yang flame walker, while the electrified body of Candle Knight screamed the signature of a thunder tyrant. The combined squads could only stand in total disbelief, pondering what kind of beast this mysterious pioneer truly was. As reinforcements from the association arrived, Chuch Ching Lee felt relieved she had left her team members outside. If she had stayed inside too long without checking in, they would have reported her as MIA. She grimly realized that the rescue team now on the scene had originally been dispatched to collect their bodies. Her two subordinates, who had been knocked out by the serpent's poison, finally regained consciousness. They rushed to her side, tears of relief streaming down their faces that their captain was still kicking. With the danger over, the association's team shifted gears. Their mission had transformed from a rescue to a forensic investigation. Using fancy scanning technology, they meticulously delved into the residual spiritual energy and battle remnants, trying to put the puzzle pieces together for their report back to headquarters. Soon, one of the specialists approached Chuch Ching Lee and the destroyer squad's leader with his findings. He reported that after comparing all the data from fighting styles to how both monsters met their demise, there was a 99% chance that one person was the culprit behind both kills. The two squad leaders locked eyes, their faces a mix of shock and serious concern. The other squad members whispered amongst themselves, still absorbing the news. They were grappling with the fact that they had been saved by a pioneer boasting not one but two high-tier powers, something they never imagined could happen. They knew either monster could have easily wiped them out. Yet this powerhouse had taken them both down with what seemed like single hits. The power gap between them and this mysterious figure was simply absurd. Realizing the immense significance of this revelation, Chuch Ching Lee reached out to her superior. She informed him that the intel on her target had dramatically shifted, gazing up at the hole in the ceiling. She confirmed that the enigmatic pioneer from the university and the formidable individual known as Tyrant were indeed the same person. Back in his office, the association superior listened attentively to her report. After mulling over the information, he issued a new directive instructing Chuch Ching Lee to pause her mission for the time being. He elaborated that the pioneer had come to their team's rescue. The association higher-up listened to her report with calm. After processing the intel, he issued a new command directing Chuch Ching Lee to hold off on her mission for now. He explained that the pioneer had rescued her team, took out the monsters, and secured the area. Definitely not the actions of an enemy. He mentioned that he and old Han Major Han Lee were on completely different pages about this. For her safety and to avoid leaving a poor impression on their soon-to-be powerful ally, she had to cut ties with the tyrant for a while. While chatting with her boss, Chuch Ching Lee, even though she had agreed to hit pause on her mission, she just couldn't resist tossing in one more juicy tidbit. She told him she had another theory based on her wild chase of the tyrant to the back mountain where he was flexing his power. Her boss, intrigued, urged her to spill the beans. She revealed that during that encounter, she felt an incredibly powerful vibe where he was at play. Back then, she thought he might be packing a spiritual weapon, but it seemed more like a long shot. Now that it was confirmed he had two top-tier powers, the chance felt way more legit. The higher-up was taken aback by this fresh scoop, questioning whether the pioneer truly had a spiritual weapon. He quickly pulled on his skeptical face, leaning back and saying it was highly doubtful. He argued that no matter how gifted you are, a lone pioneer couldn't possibly snag such a rare item without some serious backup. Plus, he pointed out the team had found no signs of a third spiritual energy, which usually comes from a separately crafted spiritual weapon. Chuch Ching Lee jumped in to clarify an important point. The spiritual weapon aura she felt during her first run-in with him clearly had a yang vibe. This new revelation changed the game completely. The superior's eyes popped wide open as he grasped the implication. If the weapon's attributes stemmed directly from the user's own yang energy, it meant he wasn't just wielding a weapon, he was crafting it. This led to a mind-blowing conclusion. If he could whip up his own spiritual weapons, he must be a spirit creation realm cultivator. Such a being could theoretically fly solo, but that kind of power was almost mythical. Chuch Ching Lee was blown away by this idea, realizing that folks at that level were rarer than rare, with barely a couple in the whole wide world. Then the superior conjured an even spookier possibility. If this guy really had a third special attribute, it would completely flip the power scale and rock the entire pioneer community. He explained that according to all known research, different attributes tend to clash inside the human body, making it nearly impossible for them to coexist. So far, no pioneer had ever been confirmed to have three different spiritual attributes. Therefore, if the pioneer truly had a spiritual weapon, the fact that they didn't pick up a third energy signature from it might actually be a silver lining. As the call wrapped up, the superior was left mulling over one worrisome thought. He could only pray that such a powerful pioneer would never turn out to be humanity's enemy. Back in his apartment, Fong Yi stood under a hot shower deep in thought as he washed off the grime and fatigue from his latest brawl. As he toweled off, he pondered the current state of the world. He knew there was less than a year before the grand spiritual energy revival, but wild monsters and strange occurrences were already popping up more frequently than ever. He tapped into his yang attribute to zap his clothes dry, his hand glowing with golden energy. As he reflected on how many pioneers like him had already started their own crazy training adventures, he thought back to the rowdy dudes he had met at the lava river. He realized that once the link between the body and the spiritual world was cracked open, people naturally became more attuned to the changes around them. He acknowledged that even without the official green light from the country, many self-trained pioneers had already broken into the one-star Ghost Axe realm. The fact that the government, through agents like Chuch Ching Lee, was reaching out to wild pioneers like him indicated that Both sides were currently enjoying a relatively calm phase of mutual exploration. Standing in his room thinking about Major Han Li and Chuch Ching Lee, he figured that for now the monsters were still in check, and there was no serious beef yet among the different pioneer groups. However, as he finished getting ready, he knew this tranquility was hanging by a thread. The government had already formed the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, but they still hadn't spilled the beans to the public about it. He fully grasped their strategy. While everyone else was fretting over local issues and weird events, the government was walking a tightrope trying to protect humanity while giving subtle early warnings without sending everyone into a frenzy. Despite his recent wins, Fong Yi's take on the world situation was still a downer. He realized the problem was the government's reluctance to officially launch a full-scale cultivation era. With such a massive population, he understood that once the entire truth was laid bare, society would likely descend into chaos and carnage. In the current state, even official pioneers wouldn't be able to halt the looming chaos, and the cocktail of internal issues and external threats from monsters would only make things messier. He recognized that the government's gentle, careful approach wasn't entirely off base, knowing that human fear and panic could be way more destructive than any monster. Still, what truly gnawed at him was how rapidly the monsters were evolving, far exceeding his wildest predictions. He reviewed the intel on the creatures he had just battled. They were your typical byproducts of dark attribute contamination, specifically the shadow attribute, just a branch of that dark energy he was all too familiar with. Recognized as a natural enemy to adventurers and currently something he couldn't digest. He figured out these critters were way smarter than your average beasts teaming up to ambush and snack on. Adventurers they considered a prime buffet. Still, he knew deep down that these creatures were leagues weaker than the genuine dark-type monsters he remembered from his past life. Monsters capable of wiping entire nations off the map solo, yet this near miss was a serious wake-up call about the rising threats. He was certain that if he hadn't showed up, Chuch Ching Lee and her whole crew would have been history. A flicker of hope ignited inside him as he pondered the system's wording. The fact that the dark attribute was only a temporary no-go suggested that once he ticked off some boxes, he might be able to tap into its power himself, a potential game-changer for future battles. He took stock of his current skills. He now wielded the golden sun-breathing technique of the Yang attribute, the divine thunder tempering of the thunder attribute, and the crimson flame blade technique. With these high-tier techniques and his current strength as a 3-star Ghost Axe realm adventurer, he was confident that few could match him. However, as he stood there wrapped in his own impressive power, he realized, without a doubt, that it wasn't nearly enough. Suddenly, his train of thought was derailed by his phone ringing. He picked it up, puzzled to see it was a call from his auntie. On the other end, she asked about his well-being before spilling the real tea. She said his cousin was heading to the city for studies and, worried for her safety, wondered if she could crash at his place instead of a hotel. Fong Yi was caught off guard, his memory of his cousin as hazy as a foggy morning. All he could recall was a quiet, straight-A student glued to her books. He couldn't even picture her face. Regardless, he nodded in agreement, telling his aunt there's a spare room. When he inquired about her arrival, his aunt simply said she would send his cousin his address and let her navigate her way over. Meanwhile, in a dark room aglow with a computer screen, a person with long, almost claw-like fingers typed furiously away at a keyboard. Clad in a baggy hoodie with ears poking through, this person was wrapping up a call with her mother. Her mother, Fong Yi's aunt, informed her that she should reach her cousin's pad by the following afternoon, and that she would bring some specialty snacks. The person graciously wrapped up the call, stating it was all good and that she had other things to tackle. On her screen was a chat window for a group called the Spiritual Energy Revival Martial Arts Vanguard Team. The user Fun Who had just announced she was in the city and planned to stay with her cousin. After hanging up, she clicked her mouse, bringing up a new window on an internet sensation nicknamed Deathtown, where 3 more folks had vanished during a pork beast challenge. A graphic blood-splattered image of the town accompanied the article. With glasses glowing from the screen, Fun Who pinpointed it as Yanghuo Town. Her curiosity was definitely piqued. Her browsing was cut short when her mother walked in, asking if she had wrapped up packing. Fun Who told her she was good to go, but privately she thought a hotel would be better than intruding on her cousin. Her mother insisted it was safer than being alone, claiming she had complete faith in the cousin. Gently nudging her daughter out the door, her mother dished out some final words of wisdom. Don't be a nuisance and be sure to help around the house when you can. Fun Hu assured her mom that she got it. Once the door shut, Fun Hu let out a small sigh, bracing herself for their meetup. She viewed it as just another hurdle to leap over. Adjusting her glasses with a spark of determination, she vowed that no matter her cousin's quirks, he couldn't possibly be more challenging than a monster. The following day, under a bright blue sky, a young woman with long dark hair and glasses dragged a suitcase toward an apartment building. She checked her phone, confirming that the map had directed her correctly. Gazing up at the building, she murmured to herself, this must be it, ready to finally face the cousin she barely remembered. As Lin Yi loitered outside the apartment building, Fong Yi emerged carrying a bag. She called out, asking if he was her cousin. He halted surprised and queried if she was Lin Yi to confirm, though he silently admitted he didn't recognize her at all. An awkward silence lingered between them, like two odd socks. Later inside the apartment, they plopped down on the couch making small talk. Fun Yi asked if she was chilling in the city for a summer camp, which she affirmed. He told her to give him a shout if she needed anything, and she graciously thanked him. After their brief exchange, he handed her the key to her room, which was conveniently across from his, before heading off to his own digs. Watching him go, she felt a wave of relief, thinking her cousin seemed chill and wouldn't meddle in her business. However, Fong Yi wasn't a fool. From the moment she plopped down, he sensed a faint but peculiar spiritual aura swirling around her. He speculated if his senses were on the fritz, or if she just wasn't skilled at masking her power. He immediately suspected she was also a pioneer. The aura he sensed was weak but distinct, and it dawned on him that her tale about a summer camp was more likely a ruse for her true purpose in the city. Meanwhile, in her room, Lin Yi was busy on her phone confirming Fong Yi's hunches. He couldn't shake the feeling that if his senses were on the fritz, or if she just wasn't skilled at masking her power, he immediately suspected she was also a pioneer. The aura he sensed was weak but distinct. It hit him that her story about a summer camp was probably a cover for her actual motive in the city. Meanwhile, in her room, Lin Yi was busy on her phone confirming Fong Yi's hunches, and he figured her tale of a summer camp was likely a cover for her actual reason for being in the city. Meanwhile, in her room, Lin Yi was glued to her phone confirming Fong Yi's hunches. She shot a message to her martial arts gang, the Vanguard team, saying her cousin seemed chill and wouldn't be a bother. The conversation quickly shifted to the latest gossip about the powerful pioneer at Lava River. Lin Yi told her crew to tread lightly, since there were still plenty of powerful people lurking around. After they agreed to hang tight for her cue, she logged off. She figured it was best to avoid any cultivation for now, fearing her cousin might stumble upon her little secret. 3 days rolled on, and Fong Yi realized that living with his cousin was really throwing a wrench in his cultivation plans. His meditative moments could be interrupted at any second, especially when she popped out of the bathroom just wrapped in a towel. He was also concerned that the bright golden glow from his breathing technique was just too flashy to cover up. But the toughest part was her overwhelming sweetness. One evening, she proudly whipped up a mouth-watering dinner for him. He tried to insist on tackling the dishes, but she waved him off, saying it was the least she could do. He found her super politeness and extreme cleanliness a bit odd. Despite the hassle, Fong Yi decided to roll with it, thinking that if he let her be all helpful, she might just drop her guard. He knew this was the only way he could get the scoop on her real agenda. Their quiet dinner was interrupted when her phone buzzed on the table. Both cousins glanced at the screen, their expressions briefly jumping to surprise. Fong Yi took the opportunity to excuse himself, saying he'd head back to his room while she chatted away. His cousin could only give a soft reply as he left. Alone, she sat there thoughtfully watching him for a moment before turning to her phone. Sitting on her bed, she answered the call, her expression shifting to serious mode. She repeated the intel she was getting, confirming that the big change of heaven and earth would go down again the next day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she swore she'd be there. Fang Yi overheard his cousin's phone call without breaking a sweat. She agreed to meet at the entrance of Yang Ho Town. He recognized that name as the internet-famous town, just about a 1-hour drive out in the burbs. With his suspicions confirmed, he observed her through the wall, his spiritual energy flaring up. He was now sure his cousin was also a pioneer, but he figured that with her current strength, she wouldn't catch him snooping. He was impressed with her skills. She was still just a middle schooler, but she had already cracked the 2-star Ghost Axe realm and was close to another breakthrough. He wondered if her high natural talent explained her somewhat quirky personality. He now realized her actual mission in the city. The summer camp was just a cover-up. She had caught wind of the upcoming big change of heaven and earth and had come to snag a front-row seat. He knew that every one of these monumental shifts was a golden chance to snag a new technique to boost his own strength. He pondered what kind of power would show up this time. In the end, it didn't matter. With a look of determination, he resolved that whatever power popped up, he was going to grab it for himself. In her room, his cousin suddenly froze, feeling a weird vibe. She looked around, wondering if it was just her imagination or if someone was peeking at her. Seeing nothing but the moonlit mountains outside, she brushed it off and continued her preparations. The next day, Yang-ho Town was bustling with activity against the backdrop of its mountains. At the town's entrance, Lin Yi ran into a buddy from her pioneer group. The friend playfully teased Yi about her cousin, asking if he was a looker. Yi replied that he was a decent guy, but just looked like your average Joe. Her friend sighed with disappointment. Just then, another gal from their group arrived, a redhead in a purple dress. She reminded the first friend that Yi had always said she was just an ordinary person. With their team gathered, the redhead proclaimed it was time to get down to business. One of the guys asked if a certain someone was going to show up. The redhead confirmed it would just be the 6 of them, adding that the missing member was always mysterious. Unknown to them, Fong Yi was keeping an eye on things from a cafe balcony nearby, his sword propped beside him. He noted that his cousin's little crew seemed rather low-key. From his vantage point, he could sense their strength. The weakest was at the 2-star Ghost Axe level, and the guy who had spoken was even a 3-star. He also caught them mentioning that their team was typically stronger, with one powerful member perpetually absent. As he sat watching, his gaze was drawn to the mountains looming over the town. His eyes narrowed with excitement, sensing that this was where the real action was about to unfold. High up in the mountains, the great change of heaven and earth finally kicked off. A massive green vine descended from the clouds, resembling the beanstalk from a fairy tale. This peculiar event would pop up randomly and wasn't destructive, but for pioneers, it was a crucial clue to deciphering the transformations in their world. Deep in the misty mountains, Lin Yi and her squad finally caught sight of this incredible spectacle. The red-haired leader stared up in awe, confirming that this was indeed what they had been searching for. The group stood in disbelief before the gigantic pulsing vine. However, their awe soon turned to fear. The group's adventurous friend suddenly paled and urged the others to stop, saying they shouldn't venture any further. She was trembling with dread. She explained that witnessing the vine in person gave her an awful feeling. The leader then asked if they had seen the scary rumors flying around on their internal pioneer forums. The friend's fear stemmed from a dark tale. The red-haired leader stared up in awe, confirming that this was indeed what they had been searching for. The group stood in disbelief before the gigantic pulsing vine. However, their awe soon turned to fear. The group's adventurous friend suddenly paled and urged the others to stop, saying they shouldn't venture any further. She was trembling with dread. She explained that witnessing the vine in person gave her an awful feeling. The leader then asked if they had seen the scary rumors flying around on their internal pioneer forums. The friend's fear stemmed from a dark tale. She mentioned knowing some of the pioneers from a team that had tried to mess with the vine the last time it showed up. They were powerful, way stronger than her, yet they all met a gruesome fate. She elaborated that after they arrived here, they all got buried, their skeletons now tangled up among the roots of a dark version of the vine. Overcome with fear, she clutched her head in panic. She admitted she had a dreadful feeling they would all share the same fate. As she spoke, the reality around the group shifted, and they found themselves no longer on a mountain path. Instead, they were stuck inside a nightmarish, pulsating, fleshy red cavern. The ground itself was a disgusting mass of organic tendrils. The vision of their demise was just a haunting premonition. Back on the misty mountain path, the squad's adventurous friend, who had fallen victim to an online romance scam, was still rattled by the ominous feeling. She confessed that while she was initially willing to take the pioneers' risk to either hit the jackpot or kick the bucket the moment she laid eyes on the vine, she was gripped by overwhelming dread. Her instincts screamed this was a new, unknown high-level monster, a mutation she couldn't tackle. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said she wasn't prepared to check out here and wanted to back out. The red-haired leader and Lin Yi exchanged understanding glances towards their upset teammate. They confirmed they all felt that heavy dread radiating from the vine. Lin Yi elaborated, describing it as a feeling of utter emptiness within the wood-type vine. It was a strange sensation, like all life had been swallowed by time, leaving just a hollow shell. This, she explained, was why they all felt so spooked. The group reached a chilling conclusion. The vine was trying to devour their very life force. Just as the panicky friend was about to lose it, Lin Yi grabbed her hand, her face a mask of fierce determination. She announced that this was the path of the martial pioneer, a path that demanded they face such dangers head-on. Unbeknownst to the group, Fong Yi watched from a nearby cliff. He too sensed the stifling, suffocating death energy emanating from the gigantic vine. He noted that out of all the world monsters he had faced aside from those with pure dark attributes, this vine sent the worst vibes. He had to admit the small squad had some serious guts to even consider cultivating in such a treacherous spot. He scrutinized the monster closely. While it was clearly a plant, a symbol of life, it felt utterly lifeless. It wasn't truly alive, but rather a dead entity pretending to be living devoid of its spiritual essence. He could see it was stained with the blood and bodies of its past victims, back with the squad, but just a lifeless shell pretending to be alive, lacking any spirit of its own. He noticed it was smeared with the blood and remnants of its former victims. Back with the crew, Lin Yi stepped up like a boss. She stood right on the edge of a cliff, rallying her crew with a fire in her belly. She told them time was ticking and they needed to hustle. Aware of the lurking danger, she pitched a fresh strategy. They would carefully tap into the vibes around them, checking out the beast without getting too close for comfort. Believing in her genius plan, Lin Yi figured sensing the monster's energy from a safe distance would keep her team out of hot water. She climbed high into a tree and started meditating, wrapping herself in a cozy blue bubble of spiritual energy. Meanwhile, far from the action, Fong Yi was watching them like a proud parent, impressed by their smart caution, noting they found a sweet spot that was the perfect mix of safe yet skillful. Kudos to his top-notch cousin for hitting the nail on the head with the right distance, balancing on the edge of brave and chick. As Yi's power began to skyrocket, the spiritual energy around her started buzzing like a party. Fong Yi raised an eyebrow in surprise, realizing she was about to break through to the prestigious 3-star Ghost Dax level. He couldn't help but be impressed. His cousin was a total rock star. In a dazzling burst of blue light, she officially leveled up. Her teammates stood there, jaws dropped in amazement that she had shot up to such a high level of power already. But that big splash of energy from her leap didn't go unnoticed. Back in the forest, the slumbering roots of a massive vine began to twitch and light up like a Christmas tree glowing a menacing green. The pioneers felt the ground rumble, and one of the guys turned around in sheer panic. The entire squad freaked out as the colossal vine started advancing toward them, its tendrils breaking through the dirt like it was parting a crowd. Their team leader couldn't believe the monster had picked up on them from way out there. And the vine's attack was a whirlwind of chaos. Savage green tendrils shot up like they had a mind of their own, snagging 2 of the guys. The rest of the squad scattered like startled chickens while their buddies shrieked for them to hightail it out of there, warning that if they didn't skedaddle now, they'd be toast. The team leader quickly pieced together what had gone awry. Yi's breakthrough had stirred the pot a little too much, catching the beast's attention. As she yelled a warning, dark green tendrils began to slink around Yi's energy bubble, which was still protecting her like a fortress while she was vulnerable after her big moment. The leader knew they were in deep trouble if they got caught. Once those vines wrapped them up, that ominous aura would chow down on them in no time. Under the crushing pressure, Yi's shield started to crack like a cheap egg. As chaos erupted, the red-haired leader struggled to drag her panicking friend to safety. Her friend howled that they couldn't just bail on Yi, but the leader shot back in desperation, demanding to know what she was supposed to do. With her hands in the air, she asked if she was supposed to burn her own precious energy to shield Yi, basically sacrificing herself so her teammate could just level up. As mayhem swirled around them, the red-haired leader attempted to calm one of her male teammates, who was convinced they should just ditch Yi to save themselves. Now that he was free, he had a whole new agenda. It was time to find a suitable host for his new desolation vibe, shielding her while she was weak after her breakthrough. The leader knew they couldn't get caught. Once the vine wrapped around them, its deathly aura would eat them instantly. Under the immense pressure, Yi's energy shield began to crack. Chaos broke out as the red-haired leader tried to pull her panicked friend to safety. The friend screamed that they couldn't leave Yi behind. But the leader replied, desperately asking what she was supposed to do. She furiously asked if she should use her own precious spiritual energy to protect Yi, basically dying so her teammate could level up. As chaos erupted around them, the red-haired leader tried to calm one of her male teammates, who was arguing that they should leave Yi to save themselves, pretty much sacrificing herself so her buddy could hit the next level. As pandemonium broke out around them, the fiery-haired leader attempted to talk down one of her guy teammates who was insisting they should ditch Yi to save their own skins. He coldly remarked that life and death were just a roll of the dice, and if they didn't hit the road pronto, they'd all bite the dust with her. He reminded her that they were just a bunch of strangers thrown together by fate, and that she was getting way too emotional. But this icy, practical viewpoint only wound up the leader even more. She pushed him aside, yelling that she wouldn't abandon her teammate, even if it meant going against everyone else. Up on his clifftop perch, Fong Yi watched the whole drama unfold. He knew his cousin, still just a student, was probably clueless about the peril she was in, as she was too weak in her meditative trance. The vine's power was off the charts, and he wasn't sure if even he could save her with the strength he had at the moment. But he understood that he needed to act fast since those tendrils were already squishing her protective barrier. Clenching his fist, a golden glow flared around him. He had promised his aunt to look after her, and a promise made is a promise kept right. The red-haired leader sprang into action, leaping through the snatching vines to reach Yi. She landed a solid kick on one of the tendrils, snapping it like a twig with the force of her blow. But her moment of glory was short-lived. Dozens more vines launched out, wrapping around her and trapping her like a bug in a web. Just when the vines were about to make her their next meal, Yi's protective barrier finally crumbled. But before that monstrous plant could snag its next victims, Fong Yi crashed into the scene. Soaring through the air, he unleashed 2 arcs of bright golden energy from his sword. The rest of Yi's squad sat there in horror, screaming her name as they watched her shield shatter. A massive, fiery, phoenix-shaped blast of energy hurtled down from the sky, smashing into the mass of vines with a mind-blowing explosion. Fong Yi landed elegantly in the newly cleared space, a small pillar of golden flame flickering up from the ground where he stood, having just whisked away both his cousin and her brave leader in the nick of time. As Fong Yi floated in a radiant aura of golden light, his mere presence was enough to intimidate the deathly vine. The surviving members of the pioneer squad gaped in stunned silence as the monstrous plant, which had just been the heartbeat away from annihilating them all, halted its attack and began to retreat from the overpowering yang energy. The tendrils withdrew from the intense glow, hissing and dissolving as they scuttled away. As Fong Yi descended encircled by a dazzling light, the pioneers could only shield their eyes from the blinding brilliance, struggling to grasp what was unfolding. The practical male pioneer who suggested ditching Yi was totally flabbergasted, questioning if this newcomer was another pioneer. The red-haired leader, just as taken aback, recognized the power for what it was, the purest form of the Yang attribute. She understood that only a high-tier power of this magnitude could potentially push back such a fearsome, soul-draining monster. The male pioneer was having a serious confidence crisis. He'd always thought of himself as super talented, having cracked the 3-star Ghost Axe realm in record time, something not many folks in the country could pull off. He knew even the talented Lin Yi's skills barely matched his own, and yet this mysterious newcomer was on a completely different playing field. He glanced down at his own hands, then back up at the glowing figure on the clifftop, feeling utterly insignificant. If pioneers like that existed, he wondered what were they even doing here. This newcomer hadn't just outperformed him, he had outdone all of them with sheer, overwhelming power. As Fong Yi stood bathed in the golden light of his power, his system kicked into gear. It had sensed the intense wood attribute emanating from the deathly vine and started the auto-writing process, swiftly crafting a brand new technique. The system window then displayed the details of his new ability, Endless Vitality, a technique that could instantly soak up all nearby life force to quickly heal injuries. As the vine's energy surged into him, he was engulfed in a wave of vibrant green, life-giving energy. He He was blown away by the amazing wood attribute technique he'd just acquired, realizing that as long as there was life nearby, he now had what could only be described as a never-ending energy absorption machine. As Fong Yi absorbed the final vestige of the vine's power, his system successfully extracted the vine's core attribute. A notification confirmed it extracted attribute desolation. The system detailed its eerie power, the ability to instantly create a desolate aura that would obliterate all surrounding life. Fong Yi stood serene in the swirling green energy, fully absorbing the new power. When he opened his eyes, they sparkled with the same vibrant green as the desolate vine. He stood in the now barren clearing, a faint green aura enveloping him. Now he realized why the vine could only thrive in such a dangerous, secluded area. If it sprouted anywhere else, it would suck the life out of everything for miles around. He contemplated the merciless nature of the desolation, attribute a powerful force that forcefully harvested the life force of others. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice full of gratitude. The red-haired leader of the pioneer group approached her, clothes tattered and her body bruised but miraculously still alive. She expressed her immense thanks, saying that without him, they'd all be toast. She then asked how they could possibly repay him for saving their skins. Fong Yi casually waved her off, saying there was no need, and that they'd run into each other again someday. He then turned and strolled off, but deep down he didn't feel like a hero. He was acutely aware that he had only stumbled upon this opportunity because of their intel. In his mind, he was the one who came out on top in this situation. As for the drama he had witnessed among the pioneers, he wasn't worried at all. With one final jump, he launched himself into the air, leaving the squad in shock. He knew that a person's true colors really pop out during a crisis, and with a jumbled team like theirs, they'd be toast in this dangerous new world. Left staring at the empty clearing, the adventurous girl and the scruffy guy watched him take off. The girl, still in disbelief, wondered aloud what their next move should be. But the guy shot back with a sarcastic tone, asking if she was now regretting her earlier hesitation to save their buddies. With the immediate threat out of the way, and Lin Yi having reached the third tier, the red-haired leader realized their best bet was to stick together. A little while later, Yi opened her eyes, which glowed a brilliant blue as she emerged from her meditation. Her teammates rushed to her side, relieved that she was finally awake. The guy who suggested leaving her behind now claimed their fate rested on their leader's wisdom. But another teammate reminded them that they should focus on the mysterious stranger who had swooped in to save them. Still dazed, Yi asked what had gone down. Noticing her other teammates sprawled out unconscious, she stood up and got hit by the intense burning warmth radiating from a nearby tree. She could feel the heat even from afar, and it was no picnic. The scruffy guy stepped forward, ready to explain what had happened while she was out cold. Later that day, back in front of her cousin's apartment, Yi was still trying to wrap her head around the wild events. She couldn't believe someone that powerful actually existed. Her teammates' words echoed in her head. He had called the mysterious pioneer a monster. He had described how the vines they couldn't even touch had been easily tossed aside by that guy's power, and how the giant beanstalk had retreated high into the sky, no longer daring to come near them. Such was the overwhelming presence of the man who had saved them. She knew that even though he was long gone, the vine was still chill, a sign of his lingering power. When she opened the door to her apartment, she was shocked to find Fong Yi there waiting to greet her. He looked at her with concern, noticing she appeared a tad pale. Yi quickly shook it off, forcing a smile and blaming her tiredness on a long day of studying. Fong Yi bought her excuse, telling her she'd worked hard and should get some rest. He offered to order takeout for dinner, and she nodded before heading to her room. Once inside, she flopped onto her bed, completely wiped out. She knew that hitting new breakthroughs could be mentally exhausting, requiring tons of focus. She felt more drained than if she had pulled an all-nighter for an entire month. Lying on her bed and scrolling through her phone, she finally felt a sense of relief. She was no longer just your average Joe. A few all-nighters weren't going to knock her out anymore. She accepted that this constant life-or-death struggle was just the way of life for a pioneer in a world that had started to shift. She thought of her cousin's seemingly normal, peaceful life and realized such a life was no longer on the table for her. Her quiet musings were interrupted by a new message in her pioneer group chat. It was from a user named Jian, that mysterious powerhouse who was usually MIA. Jian had shot a simple, direct message. "If there are any more signs of that strong dude, please let me know." This marked the first time Jaeon had ever chimed in on the group, and it instantly caught Yi's attention. She responded, agreeing to the request before throwing in her own question to the group. She asked if they thought the guy who had rescued them could be the same one from the Dark River Lava Dragon incident, and if that was the case, why he would bother helping them. The group chat lit up like a Christmas tree with chatter about the mysterious high-tier Yang attribute master. The post went into great detail about his sun-splitting slash, explaining how a witness had been blasted out of the cave by a burst of blinding light. The author boldly declared that no other pioneer in the Sea Country could hold a candle to his power and warned everyone to steer clear if they ever crossed paths. Meanwhile, Fong Yi was cruising out for the evening on his bike. After the day's events, he felt pretty confident his cousin would have let her guard down around him, allowing him to come and go without raising any eyebrows. With his new freedom, a mission began to form in his mind. It was time to find a suitable host for his newly acquired desolation attribute. He knew this power was most chillingly cozy with plants, and he pedaled off into the night to begin his quest. As he rode through the night, Fong Yi mulled over the best way to wield his newly acquired desolation attribute. He knew deep down that despite its might, it was still a nasty attribute at heart based on destruction and decay. He fretted that putting it on his own self could lead to some seriously bad juju. Additionally, he worried that its evil vibes might clash with the good vibes of his thunder attribute. He figured the best plan would be to find a carrier for the attribute, something like the weird vine itself. He suspected that the original vine monster had emerged when a regular plant sensed a surge of rich spiritual energy and decided to evolve, crafting the desolation attribute to soak up more power. With that in mind, a plan began brewing in his head. Flashing a confident smirk, he knew exactly where he needed to head. He followed a moonlit path marked by a sign leading toward the forest park. He reached the expansive urban park and parked his bike before heading into the woods, bathed in the bright full moon. He knew this power worked best with plants, and off he went into the darkness to kick off his search. As he rode, Fong Yi pondered the best way to utilize his newly acquired desolation attribute. He knew that despite its potential, it still had destructive roots at its core, rooted in chaos and decay. He was worried that tapping into it might end up with some nasty side effects. Even more concerning was the possibility that its wicked nature might clash with the good, purifying vibe of his thunder attribute. He concluded that the wisest move would be to find a host for the attribute, something akin to that peculiar vine. He theorized that the original vine monster had originated when a humble plant detected the return of potent spiritual energy and chose to evolve, giving rise to the desolation attribute as a means to absorb more power. With this plan forming in his mind, he felt a confident grin rising on his face. He knew precisely where he'd need to go next. He followed a moonlit path directed by a sign pointing toward the forest park. He found himself at the vast urban park, leaving his bike behind to venture into the woods. Under the radiant full moon, he traversed a meadow filled with bright glowing flowers. He knew he needed to find that perfect lucky plant, a specimen that could forge a strong connection with his spiritual energy and radiate proximity to him. With his eyes shut, he concentrated, extending his spiritual energy outward. A vibrant green aura streamed from him, enveloping the forest and connecting with the plants. He sensed a response, feeling the plant's energy rising to meet his own. He noted that while their response was abundant, it still didn't pack the punch he needed. As Fong Yi continued to send out his energy, he realized he craved a far stronger reaction from the greenery surrounding him. Suddenly, he halted, his attention snagged by a specific spot in the woods. There, amidst the tall grass, a lone white flower with a glowing center danced gently as if it were waving hello. He thought to himself, could this be the treasure I've been hunting for? He tiptoed closer, extending his finger like it was some top-secret operation. As his fingertip made contact, the flower's petals snatched it up like they were the latest snack craze, and he could practically feel it gobbling up his spiritual vibes. Then, with a cheerful bounce, it reopened, looking like it just finished a big feast. Fong Yi knelt next to the flower, a cheeky grin plastered on his face. He noticed it had some serious spiritual game. Sure, it was just a plant, but it reacted to his touch like a hungry puppy, eagerly lapping up his energy and then playfully nudging his fingers for more. He realized he had found his perfect match. Out of the whole forest, this little flower reacted to his aura like it was at an all-you-can-eat buffet, making it the ultimate vessel for the desolation attribute. He told the flower, "You're the chosen one," and asked if it was ready to rock and roll. Without waiting for a thumbs up, he unleashed a whirlwind of vibrant green spiritual energy, directing it all at the tiny white flower. Suddenly, a pop-up appeared, asking if he wanted to proceed. Carefully, he reached out his finger. As soon as it made contact, the flower's petals swooped in like they were on a mission, greedily soaking up his spiritual energy. Then, just like that, it blossomed again, looking blissful as if it had just devoured a three-course meal. Fong Yi kneeled beside the flower, smiling like a proud parent. He noted its impressive spiritual mojo. Even though it was just a plant, it reacted to his touch like a dog begging for a treat, voraciously siphoning off his energy and nuzzling against his fingers for seconds. He knew he had struck gold. Out of the whole forest, this petite flower had the most enthusiastic response to his vibe, making it the perfect candidate for the desolation attribute. He confidently told the flower it was the selected one and asked if it was game. Without waiting for a reply, he unleashed a whirling storm of green spiritual energy, zeroing in on that little white flower. Up popped a window asking for his stamp of approval. "Do you want to forcibly implant the desolation attribute into this plant?" With his eyes shining like emeralds, he gave a resounding yes. A dazzling light flared from his hand as the flower began its makeover, its petals blooming into a much grander, intricate, and powerful design.